Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable, see playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 221, Meditation on the Stars. 3 days before the All Peaks competition, all the 33 peaks, ranking lists would be frozen. During these 3 days, challenging someone to a duel was forbidden to determine the name list of the competitors. Due to that, the day before they scheduled to suspend the ranking lists, competitions transpired in all the 33 peaks, arenas. Some disciples appeared to rank low by hiding their true abilities from past matches. It was often on the last day when they would go all out, as they hoped to become the candidates of the All Peaks competition. Those who had already been on the list would also try their best to maintain their rankings for the reason that once they lost, they might fall out of the list. Intense competitions were also going on in the arena of Drizzle Peak. Apart from Zen and Yehudi, the other disciples who ranked from 3rd place to the 7th place received a challenge to duel. The disciples who ranked 9th and 22nd had even replaced the disciples who ranked 6th and 7th. As soon as the ranking lists had been frozen, the name list of the participants for the All Peaks competition was settled before the master of Drizzle Peak handed it in. In the last 3 days, Zen did not go to the Lake of the Magical Fish and 7-star Sword Light platform for cultivation but stayed in his room for meditation instead. Both cultivation methods of Heavenly Ogre Fist and Spiritual Thorn were extensive and profound. The former represented the most basic method of life vitality attack, while the latter represented the method of soul attack. In addition to meditating these 2 books, Zen continued to study the Sun Moon Stars picture. The first time he had seen the picture, Zen felt his eyes drawn to it. However, when he had seen it again later, he exhibited no such feelings anymore. Among the contemplation pictures in the fairy palace, the Sun Moon Stars picture placed first. It was evident that he couldn't completely comprehend the content it contained. Even so, he tried his best to contemplate. In the first 2 days, besides practicing Heavenly Ogre Fist and reading Spiritual Thorn occasionally, he neither ate nor drank and put all his efforts into the study of the Sun Moon Stars picture. However, after over 40 hours of contemplating, he felt he had achieved nothing. On the morning of the 3rd day, everything around him seemed suddenly distorted as he looked at the Sun Moon Stars picture. Why am I dizzy? Is it because I stayed up too long? Zen thought to himself, carefully patting himself on the forehead. In his present physical status, he would not have felt dizzy even if he did not eat or drink. Then it occurred to him that perhaps the origin of his dizziness had something to do with the picture being so exhausting. Although his soul was much stronger than the average after being refined in the fire, the Sun Moon Stars picture was by no means ordinary, and his soul could not stand it after consuming so much energy. To his surprise, after a blink of an eye, he found the surrounding space even more distorted. And as time went on, it had spun more and faster. What happened? Finally, he felt something was amiss. When he had calmed down, he found that he was standing in front of that Sun Moon Stars picture. After a short moment, with a stroke of confusion, he was sucked into the picture. In the Sun Moon Stars picture, when Zen got his bearings, he found himself standing in a space, which was neither in the sky nor on the ground. Not far away from the space, an enormous fireball glowed. Its flames emitted a dangerous deterrent. As that, the sun. The man could not help but be in awe. Although the eastern region had a very long history, no one from there had ever figured out what the sun was yet. 30,000 feet above the ground was the tallest mountain of the eastern region. Rumors had it that because it was too high, there was hardly enough air at the top, and almost no one could endure it. However, despite such a harsh environment, some remarkably powerful masters were still able to conquer it. After climbing around 10,000 feet, there were strong gusts of wind. They were so powerful that even gold and iron would be crushed into pieces by the wind. As a result, even those powerful masters could not repel its strength. Even so, some masters had come for the sake of exploring. It was said that once a great master had broken through the hurricane and flown up with his very high power and robust body. As much as he had thought that he could see the sun and the moon finally, after passing through the hurricane, he only found endless entwined cracks in the space, like a layer of thick fish scales standing straight up in the sky. As for what had lain beyond this cracked zone, even the ancient master could not have provided an answer. As humans could not explore the sky, legends about the sun, the moon, and the stars were more perplexing for them. Thus, there were countless stories with sun, moon and stars as the theme. Although he was far away from the sun while standing in the space, Zen was still shocked by its intimidating force when he looked at it. My current consciousness is in the contemplation picture. It must be God's intention that I get in here. It's a shame that I could only comprehend so little about the sun moon stars picture. With my current ability, it's too hard for me to contemplate the sun. He thought to himself. When Zen cast his eyes onto another ball, he saw a bright light, which was much quieter and softer than the feeling of tyranny that the sun had conveyed. When looking at the sun, his eyes felt sour. On the contrary, as he gazed at another ball, his eyes felt a pleasant coolness and comfort. It was the moon. Zen noticed that a shadow had appeared on the moon. The shadow outlined the curve of the ball and caused it to present different shapes, which were the so-called first quarter moon, the last quarter moon and the like. Behind these two giant balls were countless stars. These stars were the exact objects that Zen had wanted to observe and study. Through his meditation the last time, he had already been able to condensate a small number of stars from his demonic life vitality. When those stars exploded, they would release overwhelming energy. However, the power of the stars was definitely more than that. It made Zen feel obliged to learn the mystery behind the sun-moon stars picture a little each day. Since he had already come in, Zen sat down with crossed legs and began to contemplate the bright stars in the distance. What a magical picture the sun-moon stars picture is. How could the master who drew it construct the vast universe with only a picture? He could not help but exclaim to himself. Then, he began to sit still for meditation, eyes gleaming. Suddenly, with horrible and overwhelming energy, a star rushed towards Zen over from a mysterious distance. Is it going to hit me? He wondered and planned to dodge the star. However, since it was his consciousness that had entered the picture, and not physically himself, he was unable to evade at all. A euro owu, a euro. In the blink of an eye, the star darted past him and knocked another star in the distance. As the star was so big, it looked as though it was going to strike him when, in fact, it was still far away from him. These two stars collided and exploded. The overwhelming energy they released increased even more than tenfold. The light emerging from the overwhelming energy formed a gigantic ring, brilliant but loaded with the breath of death. Stars collision. The only way Zen had triggered the explosion of the stars before was with his life vitality. The overwhelming energy released from stars collision was more powerful than the one he had seen before. At the moment, he seemed to be in the midst of spiritual enlightenment. After a long time, Zen pulled his consciousness back from the sun-moon stars picture. When he came out, he found the light of dawn had scattered out across the sky. Through the meditation after entering the sun-moon stars picture accidentally, he had improved in the use of star power. Since today was the first day of the All Peaks competition and it was already dawn, it was time for him to set out for the competition with the other 6 disciples of Drizzle Peak. When they arrived at the platform on top of the Drizzle Peak, 3 masters were already waiting for them. Beside them was a middle-sized flying chariot. To Zen's surprise, however, Aura was not among the 3 masters. Before she left Aura had told him that she would come back before the All Peaks competition. Why didn't Aura show up? Is she in trouble? He wondered to himself. After looking around, he asked, O Master Wen, it seems that Master Su isn't here. Do you happen to know why she didn't come today? Master Wen shook his head, and then answered, O Master Su hasn't been back to Cloud Sect ever since she asked to take a leave. I do not know why. Although his response did not make him worry less, Zen had no choice but to nod. It seemed that Master Wen was oblivious about Aura's current situation. When he got on the flying chariot with the other 6 disciples, his face showed a clear sign of concern. With a light blue glow, the chariot soared towards the west. The All Peaks competition was taking place in the west of Cloud Sect, and it had a big battle ring. With all the excellent disciples of Cloud Sect in them, flying chariots came from every direction. The minute the flying chariot had halted, Zen, Yehudi, and the other disciples jumped out. Then, under the guidance of Master Wen, they went towards the battle ring. Suddenly, a voice caught everyone's attention. A euro oe, when? A euro a skinny old man greeted. A euro oe are these the disciples of Drizzle Peak for the competition? A euro. He wore a skeptical look. A euro oh just them. A euro the man was Master Wong. He was the leader of another team which came from C Peak. C Peak was quite low on the ranking list. The team ranked 29th among the 33 peaks of Cloud Sect. Nevertheless, they appeared a little better than Drizzle Peak, as the number of their disciples who came for the All Peaks competition was 13 while Drizzle Peak only had 7 disciples. Upon hearing Master Wang's words, the 3 masters from Drizzle Peak had grim expressions on their faces. After all, Master Wen and the other masters came from Drizzle Peak. If their disciples did not perform well in the competition, it would reflect on them, and they would feel ashamed. In the last competition, with Aura as the team leader, no one had dared to mock her. If they did, they knew that she would have instantly humiliated them back. However, since Aura was not there today, things were different. Due to the name list showed the number of participants of each peak, Master Wong must have received the name list of all the participants for the All Peaks competition in advance. So, it was clear he had only asked Master Wen to embarrass Drizzle Peak deliberately. Likewise, the disciples behind Master Wong also measured up Drizzle Peak's disciples with mocking stares. Snorting, Master Wen retorted, "What do you mean by, just them?" Although Drizzle Peak only has 7 disciples, each of them has their unique skills. You think you'll do better than us merely because you have more disciples? Think again, Master Wong. I highly doubt that matters. Master Wong looked at Zen and the rest of Drizzle Peak's disciples, and said in derision, "A euro unique skills. Are you serious? A euro?" he questioned, laughing loudly as he did so. "A euro? Oh, it seems you don't have many powerful disciples at all. Otherwise, why did you even bring someone at the 2nd grade of nature level? A euro." The skinny old man continued to laugh in their faces. As Zen had been walking in the middle of the team, nobody had noticed his cultivation level in the beginning. Now that Master Wong had pointed it out, however, he immediately became the focus of discussion, and everyone's attention. Chapter 222, Kenneth Shi. Generally, the weakest of the disciples who were eligible to participate in the All Peaks competition had reached the refinement level just below the consummation. Even the least powerful disciple at the Drizzle Peak was in the nature level at grade 7 to compete last time. While 5 out of the 13 disciples from C Peak had attained the consummation level, the remaining entrants were refining at the 8th or 9th grade of the nature level. It was rare for a disciple at grade 2 in the nature level competing in the All Peaks competition. It was unique, but there were talented disciples. For instance, the disciples taught by the saints and elders at the Cloud Sect were particularly vested individuals. They developed their fantastic refinement methods and possessed incredible strength which qualified them to enter the All Peaks competition while still at grades 2 and 3 in the nature level, where they performed admirably. 3 years ago, at the All Peaks competition, there had been a disciple named Jacques Wang, whose instructor was a great master in the Cloud Sect. He was ranked among the top 100 even though, at the time, he was only at grade 2 of the nature level. Anybody who sought to be one of the top 100 had to be able to challenge the disciples refining at the consummation level. It was terrifying to think of just how potent a disciple's inherent energy would be one day, if he was able to go toe-to-toe against peers who were much stronger and able to refine at higher levels. It was rumored that Jacques developed his abilities immensely over 3 years of refinement, which made him the top pick to be named the champion this year. Jacques was known as a personal disciple. None of the support, facilities or refinement methods at Drizzle Peak could compare to his. What personal disciples did was battle when they were still in a low grade so that they could test their strength. However, if an inner disciple from Drizzle Peak refining at grade 2 of the nature level took part in the competition, it would be considered ludicrous. A euro ohi, why is it ludicrous? A euro asked Master Wen while snorting. A euro Ozen might only be at grade 2 of the nature level, but he has earned 55,000 points in the testing. Thus, he merited the title of rank 1 in Drizzle Peak's inner disciples. Who here thinks he's at the low level and can mock him? A euro 55,000 points. You're exaggerating. A euro Master Wong retorted disdainfully. No one outside Drizzle Peak knew how high Zen's test score was. It was shocking to hear that a disciple in grade 2 of the nature level could earn 55,000 points. A euro have heard that Drizzle Peak's the weakest, but I never heard the members are best at bragging. Hee. A euro scoffed a C Peak disciple. A euro OA got 55,000 points. So he has contended with the joint attacks from the men at the consummation of nature level. Do you think those at the consummation level are feeble? Wow, the Drizzle Peak disciples take a significant risk by bragging. A added another disciple. O's strength is only at grade 2 of the nature level. I don't think he's experienced the full and awesome power of someone refining at the consummation level. When it's time, I will show him firsthand how great the distance between the expertise from those at the consummation level and his grade 2 techniques. A disparaged a C-Peak member as he glanced over at Zen. Zen turned a deaf ear to their taunts as he moved ahead with the line. After his intensive training over the last few months, Zen's ability to control his thoughts and reaction had improved so much that the ridicule from others no longer pulsed him. It didn't take long for all the competitors to take their places on the competition field. With the disciples from Skytop Peak at the front, all the disciples from the 33 peaks formed a semicircle to the right-hand side of the field. Over to the left side stood the personal disciples of saints, patriarchs and elders, who were wearing purple robes. Set up at one end of the field was a square platform where a middle-aged man was sitting on a black chair. Zen looked at the man. Although he was far away, Zen could indistinctly feel his power. This man seems stronger than the masters of the illuminating soul realm, but he's repressing his energy. I wonder who is he? Could he be the head of the Cloud sect? Wondered Zen to himself. Zen's guess was correct. The man was the Cloud sect's leader, Kenneth Shi. Kenneth rarely appeared in public, preferring to keep a low profile, but the rules of Cloud Hall stipulated that his attendance was required at the All Peaks competition, which was a triennial event. It was part of the leader's duties to select the disciples who successfully passed the trials in the competition and would be admitted to the Cloud Road and to enter the Cloud Hall. It stressed the importance of the All Peaks competition to test the strength of every genius. When every disciple from the 33 peaks and personal disciples had arrived, Kenneth rose from his seat and made the announcement of the beginning of the competition. On cue, an elder appeared, flying over the field. He carried dozens of copies of a long list, and as he passed each peaks group, he handed one to each master. On the page were written the contestants' names, their competitors, and which round they would fight during. There were over 40 disciples listed from Skytop Peak, whereas there were only 7 from Drizzle Peak. Overall, there were nearly 700 names listed, with more than 600 disciples from the 33 peaks and more than 50 personal disciples. Initially, many of the hopeful 700 disciples would be eliminated through group trials. After Master Wen of Drizzle Peak looked over the list, he frowned, sighing deeply. Yehudi took a step closer and asked, "Oh Master Wen, who will our opponents be?" Smiling bitterly, Master Wen handed Yehudi the list as he replied, I want everyone to take a look at the list here to know your opponents. Naturally, all 7 Drizzle Peak contestants wanted to know their first opponents, so they huddled around Master Wen. One by one, the disciples frowned as they examined the list. Listed as Drizzle Peak's first round opponents were disciples from top 10 peaks, including Blackrock Peak, Daylily Peak and Azure Peak. Since all the participants ranked higher amongst the inner disciples in their peaks, those from the higher-ranked peaks were supposed to be stronger. And apparently, they were indeed more powerful than the aspirants from Drizzle Peak. Elas, it seems that since we are from Drizzle Peak, we will be used as stepping stones for other disciples, Master Wen said as he exhaled loudly. When he glanced at Zen and saw how calm he was, it affected the master. Zen wasn't showy, but each time he appeared for a trial or competition, he went against the odds, and won, on behalf of Drizzle Peak. There was an air of confidence surrounding him. Zen was calm now. However, at first, Zen's deportment was grave because of the importance the All Peaks competition held, but, as the day drew closer, Zen's comportment became more balanced with an inner peace. Make no mistake, although Zen was not stressed out, he wasn't indifferent. Quite the contrary, he welcomed the competition and his mind was focused on the tournament. Examining the paper, Zen saw his first opponent was a disciple who had reached grade 9 of the nature level named Langdon Zhou of Azure Peak. Ozen, I know Langdon very well. He has inherent superhuman strength with skill equal to someone at the consummation level. He is number 936th on the Cloud sect rankings. You need to be careful, warned Yehudi. Nodding thoughtfully, Zen asked, Ihudi, what about you? Are you confident you will defeat your opposition? Casually smiling, Yehudi said, Oino, since the rival is Mac of Blackrock Peak, and he's at the consummation level as well as being a magic array master, I am not confident. €. A magic array master. A magic array master had special methods of attacking. There were two variations of magic array. One was considered ordinary, affecting people mentally, much like the magic array used on Bloody Mountain to test disciples, but didn't cause anyone harm. The other was a very powerful killing array and difficult to survive for the opponent. No one willingly chose a magic array master as a foe during the competition because of how easily an array master could deceive others. Zen thought maybe Yehudi was just humble, since Yehudi said he wasn't confident, and yet, he remained outwardly calm, which was a good start. Soon after, the first rounds started. The field was divided to create 9 smaller fields which held 18 competitors simultaneously. Around each field the saints placed enchanted barriers which prevented energy from permeating out and hurting innocent onlookers during the competition. When the 18 contestants were in their assigned areas, respectively, the fight commenced. Out on the fields, life vitality of all variations sparked to life, dazzling the observers. In the middle of one of the fields, a young girl wearing a yellow padded jacket was beaming at her challenger, a burly man who stood 6.5 feet tall. The two rivals appeared mismatched, which attracted the biggest crowd watching them. €. That's Jill Kwan from Lady Peak. Did you know she's turning 18 years old this year? And she's been at Lady Peak for only 2.5 years now. I heard she's an amazing talent, and over that time she's risen from grade 1 to grade 9 of the nature level. I wonder if she'll be able to pull off the same miracle that Yan did years ago. €. What Yan achieved wasn't easy, it was a miracle. Plus, Benjamin Long, Jill's rival, isn't weak. He's developed the evil refinement method and uses a horrifying blood-red life vitality, €. As the two spoke, Jill's brawl began. Even though Jill was short, she cut an imposing figure of perfect symmetry, with the agility and grace of a rabbit flying. Jill attacked Benjamin in a blinding, quick charge as soon as the light life vitality came alive, rushing out from the delicate jade green sword she wielded. €. Chuckled Benjamin. Obviously, he didn't take Jill as a threat, and he nonchalantly waved his blood-red machete in front of him. As he did, the life vitality appeared from within the blade. There was a noxious stench emitting from the life vitality, which meant harbored within it was a deadly toxin. The life vitality grew steadily, and as Benjamin brandished his machete, swinging it around, wisps of life vitality radiated throughout the area. As fast and flexible as Jill was, every time she rushed at Benjamin, his life vitality spheres forced her to fall back. €. You will never destroy my blood river cart. I encourage you to concede defeat and clasp your hands together so I can seize you. €. Taunted Benjamin while twisting his machete so that the life vitality flowing didn't slow down. As Benjamin planned, the spheres spread across nearly the entire field, expanding further by the second, which meant he would defeat Jill even if he didn't engage her head-on. With 17 or more circles of life vitality spreading out irregularly throughout the field, it didn't seem to matter how skillful Jill dodged it, she would run out of space to evade the toxic clouds soon. Forcing Jill into a small corner finally, Benjamin smirked and said, €. Little girl, admit defeat. If you become infected by my blood river cart poison, later I'll have to detoxify you. It's such a hassle detoxifying people, and it means I have to remove your clothes and then face to face, €. As Benjamin was casually spewing his inappropriate and suggestive taunts, all of a sudden, Jill was covered in the soft sunglow, and shrunk back before she vaulted up from her deceptive corner and rushed headlong at him. Watching Jill's battle, Zen nodded and commented, €. The big man will be conquered. €. Yehudi gave Zen a surprised look but kept quiet. He thought Jill was going to lose because she couldn't escape the circles of poisonous life vitality, which made it impossible for her to attack Benjamin while giving him a seemingly unconquerable position. However, what happened next proved Zen to be right. Chapter 223, Huge Hammers. Despite the overwhelming number of rings made from Benjamin's life vitality, there were still some gaps between each of the rings. Just as the fluttering of the life vitality rings made gaps that were large enough, Jill launched her attack. Jill dashed forward, rapidly weaving through the life vitality rings. Benjamin felt sort of complacent at first. He hadn't expected much from his opponent, who seemed to be a delicate beauty. He would totally beat her in the first round without effort. But before his words faded, Jill's yellow figure was charging straight at him at an incredible speed. But Benjamin's reaction was swift as well. At this juncture, he let out a howl and directed the scarlet machete in his hand at Jill. Then he swung the machete 3 times. €. 3 strikes of bloody heck. €. A clank, clank, clank. A. Jill was still smiling. Her pretty little face looked quite lovely. But absolute strength was concealed beneath her lovely appearance. The jade sword in her hand was much smaller than Benjamin's scarlet machete, only at the length of 2 chopsticks or so. However, the short jade sword easily fended off the overwhelming power generated by the 3 strikes of bloody heck. Disbelief was written all over Benjamin's face now. He attempted to launch another strike, but as a jet of cyan light flashed, the jade sword was pressed against his neck. Jill won. Benjamin lost. The referee announced the result of this match. Yehudi did not realize what had happened until the result was declared. He had expected that Jill might turn the table with certain secret moves. But it really took him by surprise that Jill had made it in such a brisk and fierce fashion. At this time, Yehudi shot Zen a look of deep significance. This guy does have sharp vision. The 9 matches finished quickly. Disciples on the stage filed out, and the second group of disciples immediately marched into the arena. Zen was among the members of the second group. Are my eyes deceiving me? Why is there a guy at the second grade of the nature level? Where did he come from? It's true that he is only at the second grade of the nature level. Well, for a man who is 2 steps into the nature level, he must be pretty good for ranking among the contestants. I remember 3 years ago, Jacques, who was also at the second grade of the nature level, made it to the top 100. So, don't think lightly of others. Bear this in mind, never measure the sea with a bushel, and never judge a book by its cover. Oh shoot, think about how awesome Jacques was. He is a personal disciple, and astonishingly talented. Breaking through ranks and battling are just games for him. Both his cultivation method and life vitality are more powerful than his peers at the same rank. But this guy is a disciple of Drizzle Peak. Drizzle Peak is ranked last at Cloud Sect. That shows the quality of disciples at the peak. A man at the second grade of the nature level should be at the top of all its disciples and allowed to participate in the All Peaks competition. How ridiculous. My younger brother reached the 8th grade of the nature level this year. He was not eligible to represent our peak in this competition. Had I known this earlier, I would have transferred him to Drizzle Peak to help him qualify. Compared with the other 700 disciples, Zen was the least eligible for the competition. Only at the second grade of the nature level, he was too conspicuous. And, so he attracted everyone's attention the moment he stepped onto the stage. Even Kenneth's eyes were locked on Zen. Pointing at Zen, he asked, Exu, what's going on? Drizzle Peak sent a kid at the second grade of the nature level. The All Peaks competition was an opportunity to display the power of the most outstanding disciples from the 33 peaks. Those who were selected to participate in the All Peaks competition were considered elites of all the disciples. Among them, the weakest was at the 8th or 9th grade of the nature level. Some of the stronger contestants had reached the pinnacle of the nature level, and some had even entered the illuminating soul realm. Thus, it was not shocking for Kenneth to ask specifically about this contestant who was merely at the second grade of the nature level. The elder named Shu was a bit taken aback as well. He was also clueless as to why Drizzle Peak had dispatched a little guy at the second grade of the nature level to participate in the competition. After all, the ranking of the 33 peaks was determined according to their strength instead of their subjective calculations. Nonetheless, Kenneth's remarks were somewhat offensive. Is Drizzle Peak really so lame? They can only send a guy at the second grade of the nature level to battle. Perhaps the guy is strong or powerful, Kenneth muttered to himself. By saying so, Kenneth gave Shu a chance to avoid embarrassment. Some disciples may have obtained enlightenments by luck, so it's possible for a low-ranked man to challenge those at higher ranks. When speaking out loud, the elder named Shu found that his explanation was unconvincing, even to his ears. There were indeed some geniuses who could fight against higher-ranked opponents. However, such geniuses never came from Drizzle Peak, because a majority of disciples from Drizzle Peak were from grassroots families or marginalized disciples in noble clans, who, since childhood, were fostered and cultivated with inferior resources compared to others. If Zen were a personal disciple, Shu might have looked forward to his performance. However, Zen was an inner disciple, particularly an inner disciple from Drizzle Peak. What was more, was that he was only at the second grade of the nature level. Does he want to make a show of himself at the All Peaks competition? The elder named Shu was a bit miffed. Later, I'll question the masters of Drizzle Peak to find out what on earth is the matter. At the squared arenas, all the disciples were ready. The battle could be triggered at any moment. Although 9 combats were going on simultaneously, most eyes were focused on Zen's fight. The reason was simply Zen's cultivation was just too eye-catching. Well, how lucky I am. I happen to be fighting a guy at the 2nd grade of the nature level in my first round. The man speaking was Zen's opponent, Langdon Joe. Langdon Joe was not tall, but he was heavy-set. So, he looked quite burly. Azure Peak was ranked 5th among the 33 peaks. Naturally, Azure Peak had many strong combatants. Even though they were allowed to send 33 disciples for the All Peaks competition, the number was still small when compared to the number of disciples at Azure Peak. To qualify for the All Peaks competition, each of these 33 disciples must have battled each other fiercely. Langdon Joe had defeated a practitioner who had reached the peak of the nature level even though he was only at the 9th grade of nature level. In doing so, Langdon Joe became eligible to enter the competition. Zen gazed at Langdon Joe blandly, saying nothing. But Langdon Joe furrowed his brows and said, I really can't figure this out. The rules of the All Peaks competition are loathsome, too loathsome. I've busted my rear just to get entry to this competition. But you, a little guy only at the 2nd grade, qualified as well. I wonder why. Now that a guy like you can participate in the All Peaks competition, I think it's time to scratch Drizzle Peak off the list of the 33 peaks. Zen cracked a smile. This Langdon Joe already despises me. Yet he still feels the need to provoke me with words. Perhaps it's an old habit of his. When combatants duel, one often tries to provoke the other by remarks to force the opponent to reveal a flaw as he strikes. This is a widely known trick. But Langdon Joe, a man who obviously doesn't take me seriously, still speaks condescendingly. He is too overbearing. Your brain is too simple to figure out how I'm going to beat you. So you might as well stop thinking about it. Zen bellowed all of a sudden. Langdon Joe cackled. When the referee announced that the fight could begin, Langdon Joe lifted 2 copper hammers from the ground and swung them at Zen. Langdon Joe was born with marvelously immense force. He was almost as powerful as those at the Illuminating Soul Realm. He stomped on the ground with the 2 copper hammers in his hands before charging at Zen as if he were a wild beast from a savage land. The fact was that Langdon Joe had more talents than just his amazing strength. His power was often underestimated. In the Eastern region, human practitioners mainly focused on cultivating their life vitality, and the cultivation of their human bodies was merely subsidiary. Corporeal body cultivating was divided into 5 steps, which solely aimed at purifying the physical body, thus making it more compatible with a practitioner's life vitality. And the impressive thing about Langdon Joe was that he not only had immense strength, but he was also very deft at exercising his life vitality. Just as he lifted the copper hammers, a wave of life vitality quietly spread out from his feet. This wave of life vitality was yellowish-brown. If one looked carefully, its stately aura could be detected. Deadly swamp trap. His life vitality oozed out and wrapped itself around Zen's legs, layer by layer, like a swamp, thus firmly rooting him to the spot. Zen gasped with surprise. The attack Langdon Joe made was pretty unique, simply forcing his opponent to stay still and then hurling the copper hammers at him. The 2-step move might seem very clever, but in Zen's view, it was too childish. This move could be effective when used on nature creatures, as nature creatures were unable to fly. Langdon Joe's deadly swamp trap would certainly strand them. But what would be the effect of this attack on those at the Illuminating Soul Realm? Since practitioners who had reached the Illuminating Soul Realm could fly, this move could not harm them. So how would Langdon Joe deal with opponents who were stronger than he was? Just as the 2 huge hammers were about to land on Zen, a tiny smile broke out on Zen's face. That brat at the 2nd grade of the nature level seems to be in danger now. Will he be crippled by Langdon Joe's hammer strikes? That guy does have bad luck for having Langdon Joe as his opponent. No nature creatures can possibly escape Langdon Joe's deadly swamp trap. Many disciples started to murmur. They did not care whether Zen would win or not. At present, they were concerned about whether or not Zen would die. After all, on more than one occasion contestants had accidentally killed their opponents in the arena. Zen, get him. You and Yehudi are the only hope of Drizzle Peak. Don't be defeated in the first round. Master Wen whispered. Chapter 224, Earthen Armor. Langdon was proud of his strength. If he wielded his hammers with his full strength, even the warriors who had reached the illuminating soul realm wouldn't be able to defend against the attack. Zen, who just entered the second grade of the nature level, couldn't struggle to free himself from Langdon's deadly swamp trap. It seemed that Zen would soon be a dead man. Zen stretched his hands to deflect the hammers before they could hit his body. Oh, you're dead meat, Langdon shouted. He snorted and struck. He didn't believe that Zen would dare to stop the hammers with his hands. The hammers had the power to destroy his body. Bang. Zen's two hands caught the hammers. Langdon was wrong about Zen being too foolish and bold. Zen had managed to catch the hammers. Impossible. Langdon couldn't believe what had happened. Unbelievable. The kid is also naturally strong. So that's how he qualified for the All Peaks competition despite being at the second grade of the nature level, one disciple murmured. Langdon was born with infinite strength. Even the warriors at the illuminating soul realm couldn't fight him easily and confidently. However, Zen caught his hammers with his bare hands. What tremendous strength Zen had. Operating the two hammers was much easier than defending against them with bare hands. Although Langdon was arrogant, he wouldn't dare to catch his hammers once they were in motion. The fact that Zen could do so successfully implied that Zen enjoyed much greater power than Langdon. Langdon gulped at the idea that he might be fighting a losing battle. Besides, the bronze hammers had been launched by Langdon at an accelerated speed. They could destroy warriors who had reached the peak of the nature level if they dared to use their bare hands in the fight. Zen was unscathed and safe. What is his body made with? Langdon wondered. Zen had used a third of his dragon scale power to catch the bronze hammers. He had faith in his strength and knew that his body could use this power to resist the hammers. Confidence was reflected in Zen's eyes as he stared at Langdon and smiled. However, the smile on Zen's face looked terrifying to Langdon. Langdon was proud of his strength. He refused to believe that another person could have greater physical strength. Unable to control the emotions surging through his body, Langdon's eyes reddened. He couldn't believe that he had been humiliated by an inferior person. Wild striking. Langdon roared. Then, the hammers in his hands began to spin wildly. Bang, bang, bang. No matter what strategy Langdon used to hit Zen with his bronze hammers, Zen would avoid them easily. This fight was only an exercise to Zen. Whenever his hands touched the bronze hammers, he felt warm currents being produced in his body. Finally, they accumulated in his belly. Since the currents were refining his body, Zen wasn't in a hurry to finish this battle, although he could do that easily. He chose to defend against the bronze hammers with his two bare hands. Even though there were 9 fights inside the arena, the battle between Zen and Langdon had drawn the attention of the audience. Zen is mad. Why doesn't he fight back? Is he a little masochistic? These bronze hammers are one of the best mysterious weapons. And yet, Zen isn't hurt. Look at the large dents on the surface of the hammers. Is Zen's body harder than the mysterious weapon? Most disciples were shocked. Zen looked like a monster. They wondered what would happen if they had to defend against those two hammers. Wondered why a guy who has just reached the second grade of the nature level was allowed to participate in the All Peaks competition. Is nobody better than him among his generation of disciples at Drizzle Peak? Now I have the answer. He has tough skin to protect his body. Kenneth, sitting and watching Zen closely, nodded and smiled. Your Grace, you are so wise. I guess Zen has great opportunities ahead of him if he has such an indestructible body. The elder named Shu chimed in hurriedly. Don't think so. So many young people have attended the All Peaks competition. If Zen only enjoys superhuman strength and hasn't exercised any other martial arts, he won't go far. An elder named Huang interrupted with a disapproving shake of his head. Kenneth disagreed and added, know that all disciples attending the All Peaks competition hold at least one trump card. This young man, with his tough body, seems to have survived the attack of the two hammers. How can you be sure that his tough body is his only trump card and he has no other secret weapons to help him win? What? Do you think he will survive and win? Asked Huang, shocked. As far as he knew, nobody could take a shortcut and win the competition. Even if Zen survived this fight against the wielder of the two hammers, his opponents in subsequent fights would be cautious. They would be well prepared and would work out other ways to beat Zen. Then, Zen's situation would be way more dangerous than this fight. Although his seemingly indestructible body was comparable to one of those mysterious weapons, Zen's future opponents would cut through his skin and meet with unknown weapons. Let's wait and see, replied Kenneth. Anyway, all peaks competition is always fascinating as one gets to meet interesting young men. At the other side of the fighting arena, a young man in purple robe sat on the ground, with his arms crossed before his belly. Pale yellow life vitality flowed inside his body. It was strange and terrifying to see Sanskrit words formed by his life vitality dancing around him. This man looked majestic and handsome. Do you see the guy in the arena? A soft voice was heard. Standing beside the young man was a girl in purple clothes. Her hair was midnight black, and her skin was white and unblemished. Eyes. He's very conspicuous, answered the young man. His eyes remained closed, but how could he know of Zen's performance in the arena if he hadn't seen it? The girl in purple clothes giggled. But, can you win against him? The young man paused for a moment before replying without any emotion. I suppose he must have exercised some special martial arts to build his body to perfection. However, warriors from Eastern region rely on life vitality. If anybody dares to dedicate himself only to bodybuilding, he would be a fool, because his skills and inner power couldn't be polished further at later stages. Even though my body is inferior to his, my impenetrable defense built by my life vitality is much better. Yes, I can win against him. I agree with you. This guy is really interesting. I don't know where he comes from, but I want to drill 2 holes in his body, said the girl with a chuckle. Despite her beauty, the girl seemed bad-tempered and violent. If weaker warriors dared to fix their eyes on her, they would regret doing that. Don't think he will be among the top 100 warriors in this all-peak competition since he just reached the 2nd grade of the nature level, although his body seems to be impenetrable. It's unlikely that you'll fight with him in the arena, said the young man. I wish him good luck, replied the girl. She stopped talking and shifted her attention to the fight in the arena. Although personal disciples of Cloud Sect were prohibited from attending the competitions during the early stages, there had been one exception. 3 years ago, Jacques, who just reached the 2nd grade of the nature level, had to start at early stages and fight a way out so as to attend the next round of competitions. Bang, 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 The bronze hammers hit Zen's body again and again. The sound was deafening and echoed through the arena. The other 8 battles had finished. After the results were announced, the participants exited gradually. Only the fight between Zen and Langdon continued. Langdon faced a dilemma. He wondered why his hammers could hit Zen's body but failed to hurt him. Zen was smiling despite being repeatedly hit by the 2 hammers. Langdon cursed. He desperately wanted to smash Zen's head. When the hammers returned to Langdon, he was shocked to find they were filled with dents and cracks. The noble clan where Langdon came from was neither rich nor powerful. It couldn't compare to any of the top 7 noble clans. There were only a few good quality hammers for him to choose from. What was worse, it was extremely difficult for Langdon to pick 2 hammers with the level of top-grade mysterious weapon. He knew that he couldn't afford to lose his 2 hammers in this fight and buy new ones later. There was only one way out. He should try to find a capable hammersmith to repair his hammers. He had to win, otherwise, he would lose both, this fight and his weapon. If he lost his hammers in the fight with Zen, Langdon's fighting capacity would be significantly weakened. He didn't know what weapon he would wield in his next fight. Rolling lightning hammers, Langdon shouted. Langdon suddenly stooped and directed the hammers to travel in a curved path. They seemed to be flying toward Zen's legs. He hoped that Zen's legs weren't as hard as his body. During the battle, Langdon had tried to defeat Zen by striking his face and chest. His rolling lightning hammers attacked his opponent's legs, which usually were vulnerable owing to a lack of protection and exercise. If he succeeded, Langdon was sure that Zen's legs would be broken. Then, Zen would have to beg for mercy. His move was unexpected and a surprise to Zen. Langdon rejoiced when he saw the surprise reflecting in Zen's expression. However, before he could act further, Zen's fist shot out toward the hammers. Bang! Zen's iron fists pounded the bronze hammers. 2 holes appeared on the special processed ground of the arena as the 2 hammers landed on it. Langdon tried to retrieve his hammers, but couldn't. Zen held the hammers tightly to the ground as if they were inset into the floor. Participants of the All Peaks competition were strong-willed and refused to give up easily. Knowing that Zen couldn't be beaten without playing his trump card, Langdon decided to abandon his weapon. He shouted, and his life vitality was released. Instantly, it formed an earthy yellow armor around his body. Earthen armor. Chapter 225, The Array Flag. After a long period of failed attacks, Langdon finally turned from the offensive to defensive, forming a thick shield by congealing layers of armor on his skin. My earthen armor can stand against the full strength of an illuminating Soul Realm Master's strike. You're mighty strong, but what can you do to me now? He sneered. No one can break my armor without the help of life vitality. Originally, Langdon had no intentions to use this tactic. Talents emerged in large numbers during the All Peaks competition, so many means had to be used at critical times in order to reverse the situation. If he didn't use it this time, he would definitely lose the competition. As Zen's first opponent in the competition, Langdon wasn't very strong. Still, Zen was impressed that he had mastered so many techniques. Can you really withstand a full-strength blow from an illuminating Soul Realm Master? Glancing at Langdon's earthen armor, a small smile played on Zen's lips. In that case, let me try. Let's test the limits of my strength, he taunted. Crushing fist. In a sudden move, Zen slipped sideways and his strength rose as he mobilized half of the dragon scale's strength. His corporeal body was much stronger than that of ordinary people, not to mention when it was combined with the strength of dragon scales. Half of the dragon scale's strength was able to increase Zen's corporeal body power by the dozens. Poof! The sound that came from Zen's fist punching Langdon's earthen armor was as though he had hit on earth ground. Langdon's earthen life vitality was supposed to be good for defense. His earthen armor was supposed to imitate the characteristics of the land that could bear the weight of anything. As it received an impact, it could instantly spread the offensive force throughout the entire armor, thereby weakening the opponent's striking power. Thud, thud. Upon being hit by Zen's fist, Langdon had to take 2 steps back, his face flushing red. Having assumed that Zen's strength had already reached its limit was a wrong move on Langdon's part. Under Zen's mighty force, the life vitality rolled over in Langdon's body and vented strong power, making it difficult for him to stand, and he felt his earthen armor about to collapse. How can this be possible? Because Langdon was born a strong man, he knew how difficult it was to increase one's strength even by a fraction when in limit condition. How come Zen's power increased so much in an instant? Wasn't that already the limit of his strength? Or is he infinitely powerful and he wasn't exerting much strength before? Langdon was left puzzled. Not missing a beat, Zen mobilized half of the dragon scale's strength and punched Langdon's earthen armor once again. Thud! With a heavy clunk, cracks started to form on the thick armor, as if it could shatter into pieces at any moment. Langdon's face turned sickly flushed, and after holding it in for a while, Langdon couldn't help but spurt out a mouthful of blood. At this point, he realized he didn't have to go on. Seeing Zen raising his fist, ready to dash over again, Langdon raised his arms and hurriedly shouted, referee, I surrender. Ozen won, Langdon lost. The referee pronounced the competition results with a straight face. Since Langdon conceded his defeat, Zen stopped his attack. Although there had been quite a few disciples who died in the All Peaks competition, Cloud Sect didn't advocate fighting to the death. Seeing Zen stop at that point, Langdon gasped with relief. A narrow escape. My opponent is a human-shaped monster. He destroyed my earthen armor. It's good I had it to protect me. A direct hit from him would have smashed me to bits. Good job, Zen. Pleased by Zen's performance, Master Wen's face lit up into a smile. In the eyes of the Drizzle Peak Masters, Zen was a special disciple. Because Master Su always took care of Zen in the past, the other masters didn't meddle in Zen's affairs. Even so, his many impressive performances were well known to them. If Zen did well in the All Peaks competition, the entire Drizzle Peak would benefit from it as well. It was not only a concern of honor. If the ranking of Drizzle Peak was raised, so would the rewards to its masters and disciples. Most importantly, they would no longer be humiliated by the other peaks of Cloud Sect. Pointedly, Master Wen looked at Master Wang of Sea Peak, which was next to Drizzle Peak. Wearing a sneer on his lips, Master Wang turned to his disciples. Ozen of Drizzle Peak is truly strong, but that's all he has. There have been many disciples born with extraordinary strength in Cloud Sect throughout the ages, but none of them have made any great achievements. York, it's your turn in a minute. You've been preparing for this competition for 2 years. RC Peak's results depend on you. If you face that guy of Drizzle Peak, give him a knockout blow. Euro. Standing beside Master Wong was York, a determined and obedient disciple. The comprehensive power of C Peak was stronger than that of Drizzle Peak, and York was at the consummation of nature level. C Peak had 3 disciples at the same level attending the competition, while Drizzle Peak had only 1. The masters and disciples of C Peak had a great ambition to raise its ranking into the top 10 or so, and they put their hope on York. Hearing Master Wang's eager words, York simply nodded. Though he looked like a rather plain and ordinary fellow, his eyes gave off an extremely dangerous glint. Oh Master Wang, I won't let you down. I'm sure I can defeat him within 10 minutes. He responded as a confident smile crossed over his face. It didn't seem like he had taken Zen's performance into consideration at all. And Zen's victory did surprise a number of people, as his opponent, Langdon, was also a naturally mighty man. The forceful confrontation between the two was definitely eye-catching. However, in the eastern region, the vast majority of cultivators were practicing life vitality and were contemptuous of simple strength. In their opinion, abandoning life vitality and merely using strength was typical behavior for a fool. Most people only laughed at Zen's performance, because mere strength was not much of a threat. Though Master Wang and York kept their voices hushed, Zen had a keen sense of hearing and could listen in on their conversation. Upon hearing their words, Zen didn't have much of a reaction apart from a smile. After Zen, the next competitors of Drizzle Peak were Yehudi and another disciple. Because Yehudi was the only disciple of Drizzle Peak who had reached the consummation of nature level, great hope was placed on him to succeed. His first opponent was Mac from Blackrock Peak, who was not only at the consummation of nature level but also a master of magic array. To be a magic array master, a cultivator was required with a high level of soul talent. Having reached the consummation of nature level and having attainments of the magic array at a young age, Mac had enough skill to prove he was a genius. The killing array that a magic array master used in battle was mysterious and flexible, making it extremely challenging to keep up with. It might have been a bad start to have encountered such a strong opponent during the first battle. However, Yehudi was a strong-willed man who wouldn't give up so easily just because his opponent was strong. After the 18 disciples arrived in the arena, the referee announced the beginning of the competition. Mac was a rather short, dark-skinned man with pearly white teeth. When Yehudi made eye contact with him, he immediately felt a kind of chill run through his soul. Such was the special ability of a magic array master, using his powerful soul to suppress his opponent's confidence. With the cultivation of the spiritual thorn, Zen could also achieve this effect. However, the spiritual thorn, as a kind of fourth-tier cultivation method, was more prone to launch a surprise attack. Once the opponent was caught off guard, he gave his opponent's soul a strong stab and used his broken flying knife to make a sneak attack. This collocation method of the spiritual thorn and the flying knife was truly successful and had even been used repeatedly by Zen. Unlike Zen's spiritual thorn, Mac's soul had a steady flow of power and was good at crushing opponents' morale. There was no verbal communication between Mac and Yehudi when they first met on stage. As soon as the referee announced that the competition had begun, Mac tossed out a black-colored array flag. As if it were alive, it stood up as soon as it touched the ground. Deploy the black fog killing array. Mac commanded the array flag. Having reached the consummation of nature level, Yehudi's rich combat experience was evident. None of the disciples who had reached such a level could be anything but hardworking and diligent. If Mac finished deploying the battle array, his combat effectiveness would be greatly enhanced, which would inevitably affect Yehudi. Given this, Yehudi decided to take action as soon as Mac showed the array flag. A white spear appeared in Yehudi's hands instantly. With that, Yehudi jabbed at Mac with his spear rapidly. Can he use a spear? Master Wen asked. Never having seen Yehudi use a spear before, he was puzzled. The disciples of Drizzle Peak looked questioningly at one another. In their memory, Yehudi had never used weapons before, as he accepted many challenges from inner disciples at Drizzle Peak. In his fights, he had always used boxing. As soon as he began the competition, though, he brought out his weapon. His white spear was not of low quality, but a middle-grade spiritual weapon. It would seem that Yehudi has been keeping us in the dark, laughed Master Wen. It was clear that Yehudi hid his skill with the spear in order to use it in the All Peaks competition. In the art of war, it was said that knowing oneself and one's enemy ensures invincibility. Conversely, the less the enemy knew about you, the greater your chances of success were. However, another master of Drizzle Peak shook his head and told Master Wen, don't celebrate too soon. Yehudi is using his spear in the beginning, which shows that he's afraid of Mac's magic array. Otherwise, he would have left the spear to use in the following combat. Oh, you're right, but the competition has just begun. The outcome depends on Yehudi's performance, returned Master Wen. In the battlefield, Yehudi's spear pierced the air. As it turned out, Mac was not only good at magic array, but also had good reflexes, and he dodged Yehudi's spear like a fish comfortably swimming amongst rocks. Failing to make any strike, Yehudi didn't follow Mac's figure any longer, knowing that the most dangerous thing wasn't Mac himself, but his array flag. Once the magic array was deployed, his chances of success would be greatly reduced. Knowing this, Yehudi turned to stab the array flag down to the ground, wanting to destroy it. When he stabbed at the flag with his spear, though, his expression suddenly changed. Chapter 226, Anger. Producing magic arrays required the use of array flags. A magic array master mainly employed magic arrays during battles. However, they could not produce one during the fights. Instead, they prepared it in array flags ahead of time. In that way, when they needed to make one quickly during the fight, all they had to do was to set these array flags in particular places. The most efficient way to battle with a magic array master was to prevent him from creating a magic array. Because as soon as the master had successfully made a magic array, he was at an advantage during the fight, and it would be hard to defeat him since an ordinary magic array and a magic killing array were very powerful. Yehudi's spear did not stab his opponent, Mac. Unfazed, he stabbed at the black array flag on the ground. The black flag appeared to notice Yehudi's motion, and so it released a burst of black fog. The fog rushed at Yehudi rapidly as it tried to cover him. The black fog was one of Mac's attack moves through his soul. To be precise, Mac did not use the black array flag to make a magic array. The black array flag was much like a defense move. When Yehudi had focused his attention on the black flag and then tried to attack it, it would release black fog to trap him. Warriors did not generally allow their opponent to create a magic array in battles. However, the magic array master could use all kinds of methods to fight, and Mac caught Yehudi due to a careless move of Yehudi. Do you really think you can destroy my magic array flag? Dream on. A cold smile appeared on Mac's face. Soon, he took out other array flags in different colors and put them in different places. At the time, Yehudi was already struggling against the first array flag. As that was the case, the addition of these other array flags did not sound good to him. When Yehudi heard the whooshing sounds, he could not help but frown. As Mac laid out 6 array flags this time around, he formed a hexagon with Yehudi in the center. Then Mac took out the magic array controlling plate and offered his life vitality. The 6 array flags grew bright at the same time, indicating the activation of his magic array. With great difficulty, Yehudi escaped the black fog from the first black array flag. Unfortunately, he soon found himself surrounded by Mac's magic array. Standing in the magic array, Yehudi had no choice but to watch out for all possible dangers and stabbed his spear constantly in different directions. In fact, Yehudi had trained a wonderful skill in wielding his spear. Every time he waved his spear, it was as quick as a flying dragon, and it even had his life vitality shining at the end of the spear. It must have come from long hours of practice, though no Drizzle Peak disciple knew that Yehudi could wield a spear so deftly. The man must have secretly worked on it. Even so, Yehudi was in the magic array at the time, and no matter how hard he tried, it was to no avail as no single one of his attempts touched Mac. Whenever Mac got close to him, it was as though he could not pinpoint the opponent's position. On seeing Yehudi's disconcerted look, Mac smiled with great pleasure. Then he took out a black and red stick from his space ring and calmly moved behind Yehudi. My magic array has trapped you, and you can no longer distinguish truth from falsehood. Therefore, you should know by now that you are at my mercy. Mac whispered inwardly. Although Mac's array was not a killing array, it was a weird one. It could not cause any damage to the people in it. However, it could make many deceptive images of Mac. At the moment, Yehudi was preoccupied with stabbing the replicated images of Mac. Even though Yehudi's spear skill was brilliant, he could not know which one was the real Mac while trapped in the magic array. Therefore, in this round, Mac thought he could surely win without difficulty. However, when Mac drew closer to Yehudi and tried to hit the man with the black and red club, the latter seemed to have sensed something and turned around immediately to face Mac. At the same time, he thrust his spear instinctively. A euro swoosh. A euro. Thrusting the spear with his hand, the weapon flew towards Mac's chest at the speed of lightning. Taken aback, Mac did not expect that Yehudi would recognize him among so many replicated illusions of him. The sudden burst of Yehudi frightened him extremely, and for a quick second, he got stunned. Then he realized what was happening, took a deep breath, and quickly drew back with his greatest strength. A euro. It was a little late for Mac to react. Yehudi's spear lacerated his clothes. However, Yehudi did not stab Mac's body successfully and instead held his spear to follow Mac's body closely. While deep in thought, Mac twisted to deflect the sharp end of Yehudi's spear, barely managing to do so. It is indeed unexpected, Mac thought to himself. His heart sank. Mac had thought he was surely going to win the fight after he successfully activated his magic array. On the other hand, he never expected that the man had such a great sensibility and could recognize him even with so many deceptive replicas as a distraction. The power of Mac's magic array was outstanding, and Yehudi could not distinguish which image of Mac was true. The secret, though, was that Yehudi himself had an incomparable sensibility and he could notice the killing intent from Mac. These images might have been the same as his own true body, including the killing intent of him. However, Mac was not strong enough to make his magic array do that, and hence, Yehudi could find him from so many illusory images instinctually. I never expected you to have such a great sensibility. It is a mistake to look down on you the last time. Now that's it. Let's see how you can get out of this, Mac said, gritting his teeth. He took out a thin and long crystal and pressed it to the magic array controlling plate. Soon after the crystal was embedded in, seething energy emerged from the plate. The plate could control the magic array. When Mac had put an extra crystal into it, the magic array's power increased. Unlike earlier, Yehudi was not calm anymore. Standing in the magic array, he seemed to have seen something terrifying and continuously struck with his spear while simultaneously feeling perplexed by it. Again, Mac held his black and red stick and snuck behind Yehudi with a stiff smile. While the latter pierced his spear in another direction, Mac waved his stick to knock Yehudi on his left shoulder with a strong force. A euro-estic skill with heavenly strength. A euro, he shouted while using his most powerful motion. As a magic array master, Mac was good at making arrays, but his attack strength was not very strong. Nevertheless, he was at the consummation grade of the nature level, and Yehudi did nothing at all to stop his motion. A euro bang. A euro. The move of Mac hit Yehudi and shoved him dozens of meters away. Although Mac's stick had hit Yehudi, the latter rolled over on the ground and stood up quickly, his spear supporting him. He held the weapon tightly and brushed past him. However, the man had retreated out of his reach, and thus Yehudi's spear did not get to graze him at all. I thought the bones in your shoulder had broken into pieces, but you seem to have a nice defensive strength. It doesn't matter. I have enough time, Mac thought with a cruel smile still on his face. While continuing to attack Yehudi from back, Mac avoided Yehudi's spear. A euro bang. A euro. For the second time, he was able to hit Yehudi. This time, he succeeded in heavily striking the man on the back. Unable to stand the impact, Yehudi's mouth opened as he cried in pain and blood simultaneously gushed out of it. Alas, it's unfortunate that Yehudi has matched with a magic array master. He cannot destroy the magic array at all. All he can do is wait and be mercilessly beat up, thought Master Wen, shaking his head. The highest level disciple of the Drizzle Peak had been defeated in such a cruel way. Having to witness the bad circumstance, Master Wen was certainly annoyed. Yehudi just needs to admit defeat now. Why is he still holding on? He wouldn't be out if he fails in this round, and yet I never expected that he'd be so stubborn. Another master said while frowning. Meanwhile, Zen gazed at the fighting court carefully. It was true that admitting failure and giving up the fight was not a difficult thing in Yehudi's case, but Zen understood the man's refusal to do so. Yehudi's determination to step on the practicing road was very strong. It was crucial to persist, for the sake of his determination to step on the road to strengthen himself. In the martial arts field, this was the most precious thing to bear in mind. The reason why he did not want to acknowledge defeat easily was that he did not want to hurt his own resolve. If he did that easily, his determination would soon collapse. As a result, in his future fights, he would just give up easily. If that became true, how would he grow up and improve himself? Unless Mac rendered Yehudi totally out of action, the proud Drizzle Peak disciple would use his last strength to fight until the end. That was what a fearless warrior would insist. Technically, Yehudi did not have exceptional talent. However, his strong determination had supported him to reach as high as the consummation grade of the natural level. Ultimately, practicing had brought him that far more than talent. Working hard and insisting were also necessary and far more important. Obang. Euro Obang. Euro Obang. Euro. None of the disciples of the Drizzle Peak expected that Yehudi would be defeated in his first fight in such a miserable way. Mac's black and red stick might have looked wooden, but every experienced weapon refiner would see that it was actually made of hornbeam with hundreds of history. After cutting hornbeam, it was then cooked for half a year in boiled oil. Then, after taking it out before it turned hard, people engraved runes with knives to make an array. Then they covered it with a layer of iron. In this way, the creation of the black and red stick was nearly as powerful as a high-quality spiritual weapon could be. Mac's stick was not only heavy but also harder than ordinary metal. As he continued to smash Yehudi with it, the latter would probably not be able to withstand the impact and might even lose his life. After a few more terrifying seconds, Yehudi had already been hit more than 10 times. He was badly hurt and there were bruises all over his body. There were evidently some broken bones as well. Regardless, he still tried to bear all of his sustained injuries. Mac's face continued to sport a cruel smile as though he was a cat playing with a mouse that he had trapped. Oh, that's enough. Master Wen shouted loudly. Standing up angrily, he then walked towards the fighting court and shouted, the Drizzle Peak, admit defeat in this fight. Mac stopped hitting Yehudi, who was, by that time, half dead. With a smile, he replied to Master Wen, this does not seem to be following the rules, does it? You cannot speak on behalf of Yehudi. After uttering the last words, he let out a disdainful laugh. As per the rules of the competition, Master Wen could not decide the end of a fight on behalf of a disciple, in this case, Yehudi. Only he who was in the battle arena could put a stop to the fight, which meant only Yehudi could admit his own defeat. Then again, Yehudi was now lying on the ground and nearly dead. It was a horrible sight, and Master Wen could not bear to watch the disciple die in front of him. If Mac had continued hitting Yehudi, there was no doubt that the Drizzle Peak's disciple would have met his demise sooner rather than later. Little stinker, are you from the 90-foot peak? Master Wen asked distantly. A hint of threat seemed to be clear in his voice as he spoke. Although the masters of the 33 peaks did not hold a lot of power, he could still do something covertly to Mac if no one was backing him. Moreover, Master Wen knew that he could also depend on Orasu, who was willing to protect the disciples of the Drizzle Peak at all cost. Granted, she might not have paid Yehudi as much attention as she did to Zen, but if she ever found out that someone from another peak had beat up and insulted a disciple of the Drizzle Peak in such a gruesome way, she would never let it go. If Aura had been there that day, there was no doubt she would have come up and stopped it from happening as well. He is from our 90-foot peak. So what would you do, Master Wen? Care to tell me? An old woman spoke up, walking over with a cane. The old woman was the master of the 90-foot peak. Although she did not have a high cultivation level, she had a high position in the Cloud sect hierarchy. Rumors had it that even if a saint met her, she was still respected as Lady Hua. On hearing the words of Lady Hua, Master Wen stopped in his tracks. The elder woman was a tough person he could not offend easily. However, when Master Wen thought of Yehudi who almost died, he was furious all over again. The all-peak competition was not a duel. Still, Mac was so cruel to his opponent. It was something that Master Wen could not stand. Just when he was about to argue again, the referee announced that Mac had won. Turning around, Master Wen realized that Yehudi had passed out. It was the rule of the all-peak competition that if one side gave up fighting or could not continue anymore, he was defeated. Yehudi could not bear the hurt and passed out, so the referee directly announced Mac won this fight. Giving Mac a hard look, Master Wen jumped into the arena and took Yehudi away in his arms while everyone wordlessly watched them. Chapter 227, Rocher. Lady Hua patted Mac on the shoulder and complimented him. Well done, Mac. Though you should take it a bit easy the next time. The rubbish of the Drizzle Peak doesn't deserve so much so as to make you use the magic crystal. The magic crystal was a kind of crystal stone which the magic array masters usually utilized to increase their array's power. In battle, Mac hadn't been able to completely trap Yehudi within his magic array. But when he used the magical crystal stone, the power of the magic array had suddenly increased several folds and made Yehudi completely defenseless. Master Wen lifted up the injured Yehudi and walked down the arena. Hearing Lady Hua refer to the disciples of the Drizzle Peak as rubbish, he was heavily pissed off, and his mustache was shaking with anger. A-euro-ou. A-euro. Lady Hua glanced at Master Wen coldly, a smile finding its way to her wrinkled face. A-euro-ou what? You know very well that your peak always ranks the last. You only have one promising disciple, and that too is at the consummation of nature level. Oh, not to mention, we beat him like this. What do we call such contestants if not rubbish? A-euro. 90-foot peak had ranked 11th among the 33 peaks and showed much potential. Besides, at only 18 years old, Mac was very young. Moreover, he was not the top disciple of the 90-foot peak. They were very ambitious at the time, aiming to get into the top 5 in the competition. For that reason, they had saved several trump cards up their sleeves. Hearing the remark, the disciples of the Drizzle Peak all became very indignant. They stared at Mac and Lady Hua with fury. But there was nothing they could do since both of them were more powerful than most of them put together. They had no choice but to keep silent. After Master Wen put down Yehudi gently, he took out a pill and prepared to stuff it into Yehudi's mouth. Before he could, Zen handed him a red pill and asked, A-euro oh Master Wen, give him this, A-euro. Master Wen narrowed his eyes and glanced at the pill Zen was handing over to him. Shock registered on his face immediately. It was the Red Cloud pill. Expensive as the 5th grade pills were, Zen still could afford them with his fortune. Since he didn't have to worry about money, he usually carried such pills with him in case of emergencies. However, Master Wen couldn't believe that Zen could afford such expensive pills. He assumed that it was most probably Aura who had given the pill to him. But Zen offering such an expensive pill to Yehudi was what really surprised Master Wen. He knew that it often took years of work for a nature creature to get such a 5th grade pill. It was extremely generous of Zen to offer this pill to Yehudi. What he didn't know was that Zen's fortune was nothing less than that of most senior masters. He was even richer than Aura herself. Though Aura was a noble princess, her fortune was only about 100,000 cubic crystals. With that amount, she was the richest among the princesses. The royal family was not very good at doing business, so it was useless for them to own too many cubic crystals. However, Zen could earn cubic crystals from selling heavenly essence. So for him, it was as if he was blessed with a never-ending gold mine, capable of producing an incessant number of heavenly essence. So whenever he was out of money, he could just smelt some mysterious weapons, spiritual weapons, and the cubic crystals would just flow into his pocket as easily as it had left him. After taking the Red Cloud pill, Yehudi's pale face recovered its usual red color. The Red Cloud pill was touted to be with remarkable effects. However, the problem was that its effects were felt rather fiercely. Yehudi felt that something was dashing around madly within his body. The effects of the pill were instant but painful. After a while, Yehudi woke up. He gasped heavily and reached out his hand to wipe away the sweats on his forehead. Then he apologized weakly to Master Wen. A-euro I'm sorry, Master Wen. I have disappointed you. A-euro. To be very honest, Yehudi didn't need to say sorry to Master Wen. Master Wen was not his teacher. And even if he were, Yehudi was fighting for himself and the Drizzle Peak, and no one particular was counting on him. A-euro it doesn't matter, Yehudi. You get some much-needed rest and take care of your wounds. A-euro Master Wen continued, A-euro Drizzle Peak disciples always rank the last. Even if we fail again this time, the worst that could happen would be us ranking 33rd. But there is nothing lower we can fall, right? A-euro. Yehudi also sighed. His aim in this competition had been to get into the top 100. In reality, he wasn't weak and possessed several skills that he hadn't gotten the chance to perform in the last battle. It was unfortunate that he was not as good at the spiritual level, thus losing to the Magic Array Master. Since he had been deeply wounded during his first round, there was no way he could compete in the following rounds. Although the Red Cloud pill would help him recover and it had no aftereffects, he still needed to rest for a few days. This essentially meant that he would have no chance to fight in the competition again. Something seemed to dawn on him suddenly, and Yehudi shifted his eyes towards Zen. He knew that he couldn't count on other disciples of the Drizzle Peak. They were all below the consummation of nature level and were unlikely to perform well, especially when he himself had been so badly defeated. But even though Zen was only at the grade 2 of the nature level, he still had the strength that could not be graded by his current realm. Zen, you are my last hope now, Yehudi told him faintly. Zen smiled gently and assured him, Ihudi, don't worry. I will make the disciples of the 90-foot peak pay. Haha, Since the very start of the competition, or indeed ever since finding out that he had to take part, Zen's expressions had remained nonchalant. However, that didn't mean he didn't care about his fellows. Yehudi was a very nice man in Zen's eyes. He hadn't borne any grudges against him after Zen had taken his place and become the top disciple in the Drizzle Peak. He also told Zen what he knew about the rules and other information of the All Peaks competition, which had helped Zen immensely in his quest for a general idea about the competition. So Zen made up his mind that he would take revenge on the 90-foot peak for what they had done to Yehudi. Wouldn't take the enemy lightly. The magic array is too powerful. It was not that Yehudi didn't believe in Zen's strength. However, to break free from the magic array, one had to rely on spiritual powers. And it was a very difficult affair indeed to cultivate them. Even though he was at the consummation of nature level, Yehudi was still weak spiritually. Zen was at the second grade of the nature level. His advantage was his inborn strong power. But breaking the magic array based solely on his inborn strong power was next to impossible, and that was what had Yehudi worried. But he didn't know that Zen's spirit was as solid as a rock after being tempered by the huge furnace. Since he had practiced the spiritual thorn and had reached the realm of forgetting himself, his spiritual level far exceeded that of his fellows. Even among the disciples who had reached the consummation of nature level, it was hardly possible to find anyone who could match Zen at the spiritual level. Yehudi didn't want to discourage Zen, and was warning him for his own good. Zen nodded, reassuring him that he would be careful if his opponent was Mac. While they were talking, 18 warriors came into the arena to compete. But in this round, there was no disciple from the Drizzle Peak. Suddenly, all the spectators started cheering loudly as they saw a person step into the arena. The man they were encouraging was clad in a white robe. It was not the kind of white robe the outer disciples usually wore. It was made of silk, and the man had a noble aura, carrying a cyan blade sword on his back. It's Rocher from the Skytop Peak. People were surprised to see him so early. With his powers, they had expected him to show up much later in the competition. No matter how strong Rocher is, he is not a personal disciple. He still needs to start from the earlier stages of competition. Just keep watching. We'll benefit from watching the fight between those strong contestants. It's also a good way to improve ourselves as we can learn a lot about martial arts skills from them. The appearance of Rocher had given rise to much discussion. Zen shook his head. He knew nothing about this man. It looked like this man was very famous in the Cloud sect. But whatever his fame or popularity, Zen had never heard of him. He was thinking that if he didn't know about this man, it would imply that he was ignorant. When it came to the master hands in the Skytop Peak, Zen only knew Leonard Zhu. The real strength of the Skytop Peak could never be underestimated. Leonard was not the top disciple of the Skytop Peak, but he had the kind of strength which had enabled him to confront a demon general. Rocher, on the other hand, whilst standing in the arena, had a commanding manner in his every movement, which put Zen on high alert. However, there was no visible reaction on Zen's face, seeing which, Master Wen explained to him, Rocher is from a humble origin. But he has special talents, which have rarely been seen for the past 5 centuries or so. He has reached the consummation of nature level at the age of 18. Furthermore, he grasps the sword intent more deeply than anyone else, and once, successfully broke a record which had been set by a master from the illuminating soul realm. If you encounter him in the arena, you'd better give up. As Yehudi had been defeated rather badly, Master Wen was greatly discouraged. From his point of view, all his hopes were pinned on Zen, but the chances of winning the competition were extremely thin. Rocher was a swordsman of the finest degree. Anyone who came to fight with him risked losing their lives, as they were sure to be as easily killed by his sword as a chicken. The greater threat was that they couldn't resist and death would find them swiftly. No superficial injuries, or minor wounds, just a single, deathly blow and Rocher was done with you. Master Wen. Despite saying so, Zen smiled. He knew that Master Wen was saying this with the good intention of protecting him from losing his life. But the good old master didn't know what was on Zen's mind. A large number of powerful masters had gathered in the All Peaks competition. Some of them were so powerful that Zen wasn't 100% sure that he could beat them. However, since he had participated in the competition, he would do his best to move forward and would not stop until his last breath. So when he saw Rocher's real strength, his heart trembled strongly. But not out of fear, no. It was the tremble of excitement that he could hardly control. In the face of deafening cheers from the crowd, Rocher stood in the center of the arena. His opponent was Damien Zug from the Skyrath Peak, another contestant at consummation of nature level. Compared to Fren, Damien was a mild and calm person. Powerful as he was not as famous as Fren. So while facing his opponent Rocher, he acted very cautiously. He took out his sword and coldly asked his opponent, Orocher, come on. Show me your sword, Rocher shook his head and smiled lightly, having no intention to take out his sword. Oa. Show my sword to you. I don't need a sword to fight you. Rocher was going to fight this man with his bare hands. Damien gnashed his teeth. As a member of the Zug clan, and a top disciple of the Skyrath Peak, he hadn't expected that Rocher would be so arrogant and confident that he would beat him without a sword. You don't want to use a sword? Then I will make you use one. As soon as he finished his words, Damien lifted his sword and rushed towards Rocher. Triple swords of absolute annihilation. The sword techniques that Damien had practiced could emanate prodigious power. Moreover, he knew that his opponent was not easy to deal with. So he employed his strongest skill first. There were only 3 movements in the triple swords of absolute annihilation, but its power became stronger with the advance of its movements. Facing Damien's unique skill, Rocher suddenly moved. His technique was unfathomable. It looked as if he was standing there motionlessly, but in reality, he was actually rushing straight towards Damien. At the very moment he reached Damien, he suddenly stretched out 2 fingers towards him and pressed them on the handle of Damien's sword. A clinking sound was heard, loud and clear even over the hubbub and cheers of the crowd. The ferocity and speed of this attack was such that Damien didn't even realize what had happened. Rocher had used only 2 of his fingers to gently tap on the handle of Damien's sword, and then it had dropped on the ground. Within a second of this move, Rocher's fingers immediately pointed themselves at Damien's forehead. Damien stood still when he realized what was going on. Given that Rocher was able to shoot his sword down with the intent of just 2 of his fingers, Damien had no doubt that the same 2 fingers could as easily blow up his head. I surrender, The gap between their real strength was too immense. And it was useless for Damien to continue the fight. So he surrendered without hesitation. Rocher turned around and left without even taking a look at Damien. The judge who was monitoring the round was also stupefied. It was not until Rocher had stepped out of the arena that he remembered that he had to announce the result. Orocher won and Damien lost. The crowds cheered with loud applause. While his excellence compared to all the other disciples of the Cloud sect was yet to be decided, one thing was for sure, Rocher was undoubtedly the most popular disciple in the Cloud sect. The popularity was largely attributed to his humble origins. From an anonymous boy to a powerful man who reached such a high level that he had broken the record set by a master of the illuminating soul realm, his story was legend everywhere and contributed to his fame deeply. The competition continued in the arena. The group fights were supposed to eliminate 3/4 of the disciples. Every disciple had to fight at least 2 or 3 rounds. This was a long and tiring process. Later, another 3 disciples of the Drizzle Peak entered the arena to contest in the rounds. But it seemed that their overall performance was not so encouraging. Except for Zen who won in the 2nd round, all the other disciples ended in failure. When it came to the 8th round, it was Zen's turn to fight again. Ozen of the Drizzle Peak versus York of the Sea Peak. The judge's voice came loud and clear. Master Wang from the Sea Peak suddenly laughed upon hearing this while Master Wen's face darkened. York was in the good graces of Master Wang. Master Wen obviously sensed that York was a seeded player of the Sea Peak and his strength should not be underestimated. The Sea Peak had stayed silent in the past few years. They were actually accumulating their strength and lying in wait to surprise everyone in the All Peaks competition. Zen vs. York, God bless Zen. Chapter 228, Mad Monster Hacking. The Drizzle Peak disciples have been knocked out so soon. Thought they wouldn't have a chance to fight against us before getting eliminated. Their rotten luck. York, it's your turn now, Master Wang sneered. York walked out from behind his master and stretched out to warm himself up. Keeping a fixed eye on Zen, he remarked to Master Wang, €0 3 moves. The boy will be beaten by me under 3 moves, €. To York, Zen's strength of grade 2 nature level was not even worth considering. It could never hold up to his own power. Zen had employed his stupendous innate strength moments ago, but how would that fare against York? No matter how much strength he had, his life vitality couldn't outmatch York's power and speed. Zen would be rash to try, York told himself conceitedly. Overhearing the conversation between Master Wang and York, Master Wen rubbed his long face. He wanted to refute the claim but didn't know how to. Previously, he had been somewhat confident about Zen and Yehudi, but the latter was defeated in the first round and had gotten himself injured. He couldn't join the next round, which frustrated Master Wen. The master could do nothing but endure York's taunt with some contempt. This was how the warrior's world operated. Strength was respected, and the weak only had one of 2 roads to choose from, to endure or to die. Fortunately, this was Cloud Sect. In the world outside, the weak didn't have a chance to even endure. €0 3 moves. Zen raised his brows at that. His demeanor exuded tranquility, like he was impervious to all desires and passions. But that didn't mean Zen would tolerate this. There were many powerful men in the world who deserved his tolerance, such as the head of the Cloud Sect, Kenneth, who was currently sitting on the platform. But York wouldn't be one of them. Even if York was truly capable, he wasn't good enough to alarm Zen. €0 eyes. 3 moves would be enough for me to beat you. If there is no accident, I would only need 2. York laughed with disdain. €0 if you can't beat me in 3 moves, would you admit your defeat? Zen asked him with a smile. York snorted. €0 I know you are trying to provoke me. You want me to admit my loss if you counter my 3 moves. Fine, I concede. 3 moves. If I can't beat you, I will admit my defeat. €0 you'll right. York, you are the #1 inner disciple at Sea Peak. Remember, you are powerful enough to dominate anyone, Master Wang said to him. He wasn't worried about York's impulsive declaration, for he had evaluated York's strength to be close to the late stage of consummation. It would be easy for him to defeat a young disciple only at grade 2 of the nature level. As per his calculations, York could end the fight against Zen in 1 mere move, let alone 3. Zen curled his lip, not saying another word as he strode to the competition field. The disciples of this round arrived one after the other. Soon, Zen was on the opposite side of York. €0 keep your eyes wide open. I want you to take notice as I defeat you with my 3 moves. Take out your weapon, York announced as he took out a black-blue antique machete. He was a skilled swordsman, and his sword €0, a top-grade spiritual weapon €0, was named Murdering Chop. York got it by luck when he had been cultivating outside. It was his good luck charm. The black-blue antique machete was his support, but his biggest strength was his understanding of the blade intent. He had honed his blade skills for 10 years and finally managed to somewhat comprehend the intent. He wasn't very well versed in it as of now, but he would master the machete intent someday. The blade was a potent killing weapon, and the blade intent was fierce and overbearing. Although York knew only a little of it, it was enough to double his fighting capacity. He relied the most on this skill of his. €0 weapon, my fist is my weapon. Zen smiled at him casually. There were many rounds in the All Peaks competition and Zen was not confident about defeating some of the more powerful men. He didn't want to put the cards in his hand on display in this early fight. Once he revealed his cards, his opponents would figure out a solution to his moves. The ones with more tricks up their sleeves would then find it easy to win. €0 doesn't matter what your weapon is. I will still beat you with 3 moves. York laughed. Wind-breaking pole. He roared out. All of a sudden, York's black-blue antique machete turned into a heliciform cutter shadow which split into 2 pairs before breaking into 4 and then 8. Zen stared at the cutter shadows, the expression on his face unreadable. There was potent momentum hidden in the cutter shadows which seemed capable of chopping everything surrounding them to pieces. Of course, it merely seemed capable of doing so. York looked to have comprehended a little bit of the blade intent, but Zen had mastered the sword intent to a small success. Moreover, York had cultivated his blade skills for 10 years, but Zen had only been using the sword for less than a month, so there was a world of difference between their strength. This move cannot threaten me, Zen thought as he manifested the energy of the phoenix crystal on his arm and raised his speed by 30%. There were still many rounds of the fight left, and the energy of the phoenix crystal was not limitless. And there was no need to make use of too much energy to avoid York's move. It would be enough to raise his speed by that fraction. Zen shuttled through the cutter's shadows like a flexible leopard. They couldn't touch an inch of him. York furrowed his brows. Truth be told, Zen's speed was beyond his expectations, but when he saw Zen shuttle through the cutter's shadows, he sneered, "Oh, you are courting death if you think you can escape my cutter shadows. Wind spirit gather. As York operated his life vitality, the cracking cutter shadows halted in the midair and floated around Zen. The shadows further split into 32 pairs, for a total of 64 cutter shadows. Wind spirit gather. Gather kill. York squeezed his fingers into a tight fist and the 64 cutter shadows abruptly diverted in their paths and rushed in Zen's direction to gather themselves. If the 64 cutter shadows surrounded him, they would cut right through his body. York was already imagining how Zen would look by the time the cutter shadows were through with him, an utterly disabled man. Crack. However, York's daydreaming was fruitless. Zen rushed to the front and smashed the cutter shadows before him with his fist, all in one go. Is his fist so tough? York was dumbstruck. Was he hiding something in his fist? York surveyed Zen's fist from the distance, but found that there was nothing. Not even the life vitality was enclosed in his bare hands. Most warriors practiced with weapons, but a few of them were also trained in fighting with their fists. There was an obvious disadvantage of wielding power with one's fist. No matter how sturdy the warrior's corporeal body was, it couldn't be more resilient than a treasured weapon. So when they cultivated at a later stage, it was advisable to cover the fist with their life vitality in order to defend themselves against a mysterious or spiritual weapon. But York could spot no life vitality congealed in Zen's hands, which meant that Zen resisted the cutter's shadows with his mere fist. For a second, York wondered if he had missed a trick. He was unaware that Zen not only had hard fists, but also had a solid body similar to a middle-grade spiritual weapon with two spiritual textures. It had become so when he had cultivated in abnormal fires several times and absorbed their energy. For too many times, Zen had made an escape when he was faced with a blade intent released by a powerful man of the illuminating soul realm. It had been the case with James. However, now, when he came face to face with York's cutter shadows, he was able to stand his ground and would even allow them to cut him without injury. But it could get too chaotic if Zen did that, so he chose to break York's cutter shadows with his fist instead. You've used up your 2 moves. This is your last chance, Zen said with a smile. The power in his fists was obvious. The spectators present in the arena kept this attribute in mind. The innate superhuman strength Zen had just shown did not particularly grab eyeballs. However, being able to break the cutter shadows to pieces with his fist alone attracted their attention. Most of the people who made a note of his power were the masters of the different peaks. If any disciples from their own peaks competed with Zen in the next set of rounds, they could inform them to be heedful of the impregnable fists. Bravo, Zen. Master Wen, who was watching the competition from the sidelines, suddenly cheered. He could finally breathe a sigh of relief. From the moment he led the disciples from Drizzle Peak to this contest, he had been suffering. Now, he could finally hold his head high. At the same time, he didn't forget to remind Zen to be careful. The third move is still left. Zen, watch out. Come on, Zen. Defeat York. Oe is a coward. If he can't defeat you with the last move, he will lose. The disciples from Drizzle Peak kicked up a fuss at the opportunity. Master Wong from Sea Peak wore a straight, gloomy face. He couldn't figure out how Zen had refined his fists, but after realizing the power in them, he knew that York would find it difficult to cope with Zen. York narrowed his eyes. Earlier, he had looked down upon Zen and his abilities, but he wasn't anxious or impetuous by nature. As a swordsman, he could easily brush aside any negative emotions. After some while, York raised his black-blue antique machete slowly as the decisive words flew out of his mouth. Mad monster hacking. Break it. Chapter 229, One Move. Among York's sword skills, mad monster hacking was his most powerful move. The refinement technique he practiced had some attributes of wind, since his martial arts emphasized being quick, hard and violent. As he wielded his machete in preparation to hack Zen, whirlpools appeared before his black-blue antique machete. A sharp coldness could be felt from the consequently formed spinning currents. The intents of blade, sword, and spear were extremely difficult to grasp. For even just coming to understand a bit of blade intent, York was already an amazing warrior. No matter what martial arts move he used, the blade intent greatly multiplied its power. The only problem was that York was incapable of covering the whole machete with the blade intent, so he could only apply a little blade intent to the revolving aura on the blade before trying to hack Zen. Given the situation, York actually felt that his use of the blade intent was enough to beat or even kill the man. Oh, how can you resist this? Murmured York with narrowed eyes. A cold smile appeared on his face as he rushed towards Zen with the mad monster hacking technique. As his opponent dashed towards him, Zen squinted at the machete in the other's hands. He could feel the blade intent flowing through the black-blue antique machete. Be that as it might, the blade intent wasn't enough to hurt or even threaten Zen. It hadn't been long since Zen started to feel and create the sword intent himself. He was already capable of using the intent at will. It would cover more than 3 square meters surrounding his body, and if anybody attempted to enter his circle of defense, he could easily snap his fingers and they would be torn to pieces. The blade intent, which York was so proud of, was nothing to Zen. Before York's hacking technique could even reach Zen's body, Zen's eyes began to glow. His sword intent suddenly formed and immediately smashed York's blade intent to bits. Because the real strength and power of mad monster hacking lay in the blade intent, once it was destroyed, he was basically harmless to Zen. Oh, what the heck? Zen's counterattack left York shocked and paralyzed. The blade intent, which he had taken a great amount of his effort and time in mastering, disappeared in the blink of an eye. Impossible. The blade intent was formless and his understanding of its nature was profound and unforgettable. It was indestructible unless Zen had created his own intent, be it sword intent, spear intent or others. Has he come to understand some kind of intent on his own? Doubts began filling York's mind. The lack of refinement in his attack made York let his guard down. Zen's counterattack was so swift and he withdrew it even more quickly, leaving York clueless as to why his blade intent disappeared. Due to the doubts in his heart, his mad monster hacking technique began to sway unsteadily. A capable warrior should have a strong heart and mind no matter what was thrown in his path. If he was swayed and began to doubt himself, he would find himself losing the fight. Anyhow, Zen was already certain that York was no longer a threat after losing his blade intent. Bang! When Zen pounded at the blade of the black-blue machete and applied great power on it, York could no longer hold his weapon, causing him to back up quickly. Moments later, he freed himself from Zen and stood there, panting heavily. Although he was well capable of finishing York off quickly, Zen didn't intend to defeat his opponent in a single move. Instead, he smiled at York and said, you'll fail. You know that, don't you? Fail? Are you kidding me? My technique didn't work well today, that's all. Don't get cocky. I'll show you my real strength, York replied with heavy breaths, sounding rather desperate. Lifting his machete to wield it again, York intended to start another attack. All the while, he thought he failed due to his insufficient understanding of the blade intent. The idea that Zen was merely able to smash his blade intent didn't even occur to him. You have poor memory. Zen laughed with a shrug of his shoulders. Poor memory? Asked York, puzzled. Didn't you tell me you would lose if you couldn't beat me in 3 moves? You seemed so confident about that. Where's that confidence now, huh? Zen chuckled as he taunted York. His words made York take a nervous gulp. After hearing Zen's remarks, York seemed rather embarrassed. Because he underestimated Zen's ability to resist the mad monster hacking technique, York boasted of his skills in martial arts, certain that he could defeat the disciple of Drizzle Peak easily. However, things didn't go as well as he thought they would. When he tried to use the third move of his technique, York realized that his blade intent suddenly disappeared. If he intended to keep his previous promise, it would mean that he had already lost. However, he was standing where he was for the All Peaks competition, not for a personal fight. If he lost the fight, he would lose any chance to compete with the other participants. It was too shameful for someone like York, so he refused to admit defeat or leave the arena. On the other hand, though, he would be considered a promise breaker if he refused to give up. York, you've already used up your 3 moves. Give up and leave the arena. A scornful voice came from a man in the audience. Shame on you. How could you break your promise? Admit your defeat, loser. Previously, the disciples of Sea Peak never missed the opportunity to laugh at those from Drizzle Peak. Now, it was Drizzle Peak's disciples' turn to fight back and mock York. With an unpleasant smirk, Master Wen said, "Oh Master Wang, your disciple promised to defeat his opponent in 3 moves. Surely he wouldn't go back on his own words, would he?" In truth, Zen worried him. The fact that he resisted York's 3 strong attacks so effortlessly was shocking. Hearing the mocking tone, Master Wang shot a partly disapproving and partly embarrassed look at Master Wen. He had faith in York's strength in martial arts. Although York might lose during the next round when he had to fight those top-level disciples, Master Wang thought nobody could defeat him at the current stage. What was worse, some excellent disciples from the top 10 peaks also attended the group competitions. Because he wouldn't allow York to be defeated by them at the group stage, Master Wang couldn't let York keep his word and admit defeat. With all that was at stake, Master Wang was facing a dilemma. After a moment of thought, he finally decided that participating in the competition outweighed keeping a promise and his image as a warrior. Standing firm in his decision, he got cheeky and shouted at his disciple, "Oh York, forget about your stupid promise. You're a good student, so focus on winning every fight in the competition." His words stirred an uproar among the Drizzle Peak disciples. Shameless, promise breaker, how dare you tell your disciple to do that? You should change your peak's name to Shameless or Dishonest. Promise breakers fight for the Shameless Peak. What a good match you are. Some disciples from Drizzle Peak mocked Master Wang as they laughed rowdily. The disciples of Sea Peak were energetic and cynical by nature. Therefore, upon hearing the Drizzle Peak disciples taunting, they couldn't refrain from cursing back at them anymore. Before the fight at the arena could come to a conclusion, most of the audience were already busy squabbling among themselves. The noises drew curious attention from disciples from the other peaks. It was quite a rare occurrence to see people quarreling at the Grand All Peaks competition. Quiet. A saint glided past the crowd and stared them down with a dark glare. The intimidating eyes got the disciples to shut up in an instant. Back at the arena, York smiled awkwardly. Master Wang's right. The competition is too important for me to give up over little trifles. Turning to Zen with a determined look, he said, Zen, I'll show you what I can do. With that, he wielded the machete once again and dashed across the arena. Trifles. As the saying goes, a promise is worth 1,000 ounces of gold. Does a promise really mean nothing to you? Do you want to be known as a promise breaker? Someone who can easily go back on his word? As he avoided York's attack, Zen derided the other's inconsistent words. Shut up. Not able to stand Zen's accusations any longer, he concentrated on striking him down. Your 4th, 5th, 6th move While warding off York's hacking, Zen counted each of his moves. It was beyond York to predict how fast Zen moved and responded to his attacks. Exhausted from all his attacking, York had to try his best. Still, Zen remained untouchable, making it clear who was the more agile and cleverer one between the two. What was worse, whenever York made a move, Zen never failed to counter it and mock him like a joke. Your 80th move Your 100th move. Such a loser you are, York. You've made 100 moves and still couldn't touch me. Zen's laughs and mockery were relentless. Go kill yourself. York's heart was filled with nothing but flames of rage, driving him to use the mad monster hacking technique once again. You made your move 100 times, but failed to attack in every single one. Let me tell you the truth, York. I can defeat you in a single move. After rambling on with his taunts, the smile on Zen's face disappeared. In a single blow, he bent forward and punched York's chest before his hacking could do any harm. Before that moment, it turned out that he was still hiding his trump card. Zen's move was so quick that the whole audience was stunned frozen by his tremendous speed and explosive power. Bang! With a powerful strike, York flew into the air and hit the enchanted barrier above the arena. The entire area was divided with enchanted barriers into 9 parts to avoid chances of the participants getting disturbed or influenced by the other contestants. Luckily for York, the enchanted barrier was built soft and protective. Otherwise, his bones would have been shattered to pieces as his body slammed against it. Still, the blow was absolutely crushing. Several of his ribs were broken, and all he could do was lie on the barrier, shocked and terrified into silence. Chapter 230, Breaking Your Enchanted Barrier. Even though he had exerted himself to the extreme, Zen was still out of his reach. Since the competition started, Zen had been combating only by the dint of his body and speed. He had not yet even exercised a single bit of his life vitality. Is this guy really at the grade 2 of nature level? He must be a monster. Seeing Zen strutting towards him with a smile not quite reaching his eyes and a chilling gaze, as if he was staring at a dead man, York felt a shudder run up his spine. In haste, he yelled at the referee, I give up. York of Sea Peak, give up. Void of any expression, the referee announced the result of the combat. Ozen won, York lost. As the combat came to a conclusion, the light curtain of the enchanted barrier retreated sideways. Clutching at his chest, York blundered all the way off the arena as though there was a devil on his tail. Ozen, you're awesome. Oh, that's right, you have to be harsh to guys who eat their own words. The turnout of the combat left the disciples of Drizzle Peak pumped up. Meanwhile, those from Sea Peak were left quiet and ashen-faced. This time, Sea Peak not only lost the match but also their reputation. If York defeated Zen, we would still have a chance to turn the situation around. In the world of martial arts practitioners, the winners are considered heroes. If Sea Park won, we would be victorious. So what if one guy broke his word? Will you Drizzle Peak disciples complain like a whining housewife? Thought the members of Sea Peak in their hearts. Believing that they would win, many of the Sea Peak disciples were ready to make a counterattack against the potential accusation of they breaking their words with their snide remarks. However, York lost to Zen. That was way beyond anyone's expectations. It was utterly unimaginable for the disciples of Sea Peak. Even as they watched the battle unfold, they could not understand why York fell so weak that he could barely strike a threatening attack, even as he went above and beyond the 3 moves that he promised he would use to defeat Zen. Instead, he was vanquished by Zen in a single blow. The battle turned completely different from their expectations, so the disciples were still left in shock. In the face of Drizzle Peak's mocking, they felt their prepared snarky replies and words fail them. Now that they had just lost the match and disgraced themselves, they couldn't rack their brains enough to even find a retort. Although Zen didn't go all out in the match, he still undoubtedly drew much attention, continuously changing the master's opinion of him. Another participant piqued their interest. Roche, a man that was said to be a once-in-5 centuries genius from Skytop Peak. Roger had always been confident about his speed, having accidentally obtained a secret manual on the method of movement entitled The Mystical Pace. The manual spoke more of a special pacing method than a method of movements. It contained a set of very unique prospects which could bring one's speed to its maximum capacity. Because he relied on the lessons of the mystical pace, Roche was able to defeat an expert in the illuminating soul realm in one quick strike of the sword. After seeing Zen's demonstration of instant bursts of speed, Roche noticed something odd. Although it looked intimidating, Roche was not impressed by Zen's speed at all since it was still much slower than when he used the mystical pace. Upon a closer look, he noticed that Zen did not resort to any method of movement when he was in motion but instead seemed to have been moving solely with his explosive force. The fact that he had reached such a fast and flexible speed without practicing any method of movement was what astonished Roger the most. If Zen ever starts practicing those methods and picks up his speed. Roche contemplated Zen's potential. This guy really is a freak. Oblivious to how Roche perceived him, Zen simply made his way back to the Drizzle Peak team and took a seat in the corner as if nothing had happened, waiting quietly for the next round. Master Wen and the other disciples did not dare go to bother him. Having won the 2 matches he fought in, he was probably Drizzle Peak's only hope. Battles in the arena proceeded, one round after another. At this year's All Peaks competition, several amazingly powerful disciples of Cloud Sect showed up. Both the lower-ranked peaks, such as the Vulture and Billow Peaks, as well as the top-ranked ones, including Skytop and Blackrock, were proven to have some extremely gifted disciples participating in the matches. The competition in the group match stage was unusually fierce. Nevertheless, the performances of the Drizzle Peak disciples were far from satisfactory. Other than Zen, who won 2 matches in a row, and another who lost 2 matches and won 1, all the others ended in defeat. Soon, it was time for Zen to fight his 3rd match. Drizzle Peaks Zen vs Blackrock Peaks Mac. Upon hearing Mac's name, Master Wen's expression hardened, along with those of the Drizzle Peak disciples, who let the fury surface onto their expressions. As a magic array master, Mac was not only highly powerful but very resourceful. Above all, he was a cruel man. It was Mac who tortured Yehudi, a seeded player of Drizzle Peak, right in the arena until he was unforgivably maimed. During the group stage of the competition, the loss of one match was not so much of a big deal. As long as one won his following battle, he still had a chance to enter the next round. However, after being mauled in such a way, even if some mystical medicine could work its magic and heal Yehudi, it was impossible for him to take on another battle within such a short time. It was no wonder that everyone from Drizzle Peak hated Mac. Ozan, pay attention to Mac's magic array. The array that Mongrel sets up could be wicked, Yehudi reminded Zen before he went up to the stage. After having fought him previously, Mac's magic array still made Yehudi's heartbeat stutter with fear. With a nod, Zen agreed. Oh, got it. I'll be more careful. In addition, Master Wen advised, if you find yourself no match for him, just throw in the towel. No need to force yourself to persist to the very end. This guy is a real monster inside. Given that Zen had gained 2 consecutive victories already and was almost guaranteed an opportunity to make it to the next round, Master Wen didn't want Zen to push himself too much and he hoped his advice would keep Zen safe and sound until the next battle. Though Zen nodded, he did not take the advice seriously. When it came to participating in such combat-based competitions, more often than not, the contestants were merely fighting for their esteem. Now that Zen had entered the All Peaks competition, he was determined to win. With fiery eyes, Zen stepped into the arena. Why another Drizzle Peak disciple? I seem to be destined to take on the whole of Drizzle Peak today. At the sight of Zen, Mac faked an innocent smile. Beneath the harmless expression lay his brutal, unconcealable nature. Oh yeah, it's sort of destined, Zen responded coolly. Although the disciple did not show much emotion when he witnessed Yehudi being tormented by Mac, in truth, a strong impulse took hold of him to rush to the center of the arena and smash Mac to pieces. Still, this was the All Peaks competition. With several saints, elders, and even head of the sect present, Zen couldn't dare to charge and attack Mac as he wanted to, no matter how confident he was about his explosive force. Licking his lips maliciously, Mac asked, that guy named Yehudi he's the best in Drizzle Peak, isn't he? Did you see how he ended up? If you're scared, don't worry, you can admit your defeat right now. As he taunted Zen, Mac pointed at the referee to the side of the battleground with an genuine smile on his face. No one could deny that Mac seemed like a sanguine boy. His tanned skin and strong build made him look very healthy and full of vitality. However, his style of fighting entirely contrasted his image. Admit my defeat. With a drastic arch of his brows, Zen strolled up to Mac, cracking his knuckles. I sure want to see what on earth you can do to make me admit my defeat. Zen's body was nearly as hard and strong as a medium-grade spiritual weapon, so the periosteum in his knuckles was also peerlessly firm and tenacious. A loud crack could be heard from every flex of his knuckle. Snap, 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 the cracks reverberated across the arena like thunderclaps. Although the other 8 pairs already started battling and their weapons crashed and clattered against each other, still, their crashing sounds, shouts, and barks were all drowned out by the cracking of Zen's knuckles. Many disciples darted curious looks at Zen, hardly able to imagine that a man could cause such loud, thundering sounds as he flexed his knuckles. That's nothing impressive. For a man who focuses on refining his body, the highest level he can reach is the marrow refining realm. Even if your corporeal body is strong, how much stronger can you possibly get? Ha, As Mac's smile disappeared, a flag appeared in his hand which he then tossed onto the ground before rapidly drawing back. Technically, Mac's combat ability was not outstanding compared to all the others who had reached the nature level consummation. If he took on Zen purely with force, he was bound to lose. Still, Mac held Zen in contempt because ultimately, the most pivotal factor the combatants of the eastern region counted on was life vitality. When a man reached higher realms, he could strengthen his body to the extreme by solely exercising his life vitality. This would give him the power to destroy an entire land with a single blow. With that kind of power in mind, the combatants of the eastern region chose to refine their bodies only because they were getting their bodies prepared for the entry to the nature level. Once they entered the level and acquired the power to control life vitality, no one would want to spend their time and energy refining their bodies, would they? Given that, Mac was rather dismissive about body refinement. In fact, most of the martial arts practitioners in the eastern region had the same thought. After shooting a look at the flag on the ground, Zen felt the corners of his mouth twitch. He then stomped his feet hard and abruptly darted towards Mac. Taking Yehudi's failure as a lesson, Zen definitely wouldn't let Mac set up his magic array so easily. A barging fist. In the group stage, Zen had no intent to utilize his heavenly ogre first, so he accordingly adopted the most ordinary fist skill. Although the barging fist was of the common kinds, when paired with Zen's horrifying force and speed, it was rather menacing. When Mac saw Zen hurtle directly at him like a whirl of wind, a hint of terror flitted across his face, but he recovered quickly. After all, the biggest threat to a magic array was not a powerful opponent. No matter how strong the enemy was, Mac could always find a way to win the fight as long as he manipulated the array properly. What a magic array master feared the most was the lack of an opportunity to set up an array during a fight. Without it, he would be like a swordsman without a sword or a saberman without a saber. At that point, Mac was totally at his wits' end. When he detected Zen's speed, his life vitality began surging in his hands. The man stuck out a finger and gently pointed at the flag on the ground as he exclaimed, ogro. A bright light flew over the flag. Against the strong wind, it instantly grew into a huge flag and positioned itself in front of Mac to shield him. However, Zen didn't care about the flag. He simply sidestepped and dashed straight into Mac. Much to Zen's surprise, though, the flag swooshed in front of his eyes the moment he swept past the flag, and now he was left in a circle once again. There's something funny about this flag. Clearly heading forward, Zen could see that the flag billowed, guiding him to walk around it. If he hadn't experienced kinds of magic himself, he would have thought the flag to be quite eerie. So this is also a kind of magic array. I'll just destroy your flag and see what else you've got. Do you want that? At this track, Zen stopped and immediately punched a fist into the flag of magic array. Boom! Under the immense impact of Zen's punch, jets of emerald green emerged below the flag. There was an enchanted barrier attached to the flag, keeping it protected. By the way, this magic array flag of mine is a top-grade spiritual weapon, called Star-Shifting Flag. How could you possibly damage it? Mac yelled smugly. Now, he had bought himself plenty of time to lay out a large-sized magic array to handle Zen. His smirk was replaced with a languid expression as he took out another flag in no hurry, ready to build a new magic array. You said I can't damage it? With a sneer, Zen landed a ruthless blow on the star-shifting flag. Wham! Zen's left hand slammed hard into the flag. Apart from the pure force, he added a bit of energy from the emerald crystal in it. The enchanted barrier of such little magnitude was nothing to Zen. Compared to the enchanted barrier of Yolanda, this one was a far cry from it. With that in mind, Zen believed that only a tiny amount of the emerald crystal energy would be enough. In almost no time, red cracks began sprawling across the flag and its enchanted barrier collapsed in an instant. What? Across the arena, Mac still had several flags in his hands that had not yet been arranged in the proper positions. At the astonishing scene, Mac's eyes went so wide as if they could fall out of his eye sockets at any moment. Chapter 231, Heaven Fire Killing Array. Mac seemed unconcerned, but nothing escaped his attention. He deliberately pretended to curse and mock Zen as he thought little of him. However, he tried to remember every small detail of every potential opponent in the arena. Mac used his unique methods to estimate everybody, including Rocher Wah from Skytop Peak, Vittoria Zhu from Lady Peak, and even Stark Shaw from his own peak. Mac had seen Zen's strength, his speed and his impenetrable defense. Despite of his feigned composure, Mac remained vigilant. Now that he was confronting Zen, he chose to use his star-shifting flag first. The star-shifting flag was considered to be one of the best spiritual weapons, not for the horrible damage that it could cause, but for the revolving magic array and the enchanted rune barrier inset on the flag. Anybody who dared to come close to the star-shifting flag would find himself spinning uncontrollably. The spinning wouldn't stop until the enchanted barrier was broken or the star-shifting flag was destroyed. However, shattering the star-shifting flag was extremely difficult. Even the warriors who reached the illuminating soul realm found it challenging and time-consuming to break the enchanted rune barrier. But none of those warriors was like Zen. He hit the enchanted barrier with his fist, and it broke. It seemed impossible, but it was true. The barrier couldn't be broken by regular strength. But Zen succeeded with brute force. Mac was confused. He had no idea that the emerald crystal on Zen's left arm was the bane of the enchanted barrier. Even the barrier created by warriors who had already entered the late stages of the illuminating soul realm could be easily restrained by the power of the emerald crystal. The enchanted barrier on the star-shifting flag couldn't endanger Zen. The enchanted barrier was produced by inscribing runes on it. It would cost crystals to activate it. However, the emerald crystal could smash the barrier easily. When Zen applied the power of the emerald crystal to the barrier, it formed bloody lines on it just like a spider web. He punched it again, and the barrier shattered. A bang. A loud noise was heard as if a glass had been smashed to pieces. Then, Zen wielded his fist and broke the flagpole. The star-shifting flag was a spiritual weapon. Even the flagpole was made of rare wood. It was tenacious and couldn't be easily damaged by a sword. However, Zen was so strong that the flagpole broke into 2 pieces. OEME flag. Seeing this, Mac trembled. When he saw Zen step over the broken flag and walk toward him, Mac realized that there was little time left. How dare you break my flag? I'm gonna ruin you. There was profound hatred in Mac's voice. Flames of fury were kindled in Mac's mind at the loss of his precious spiritual weapon. As a master of the magic array, Mac was often asked to set all sorts of magic arrays for the Cloud sect. In return, he could earn cubic crystals or accumulate more points than other disciples. However, the destruction of one of his spiritual weapons was an irreparable loss. Mac stretched his hand, and an array flag appeared. He murmured to himself, greet and honorable warriors, please arise and fight for your humble servant. Heaven fire killing array, go and kill my enemy. 9 array flags, with special killing spells inscribed on each, flew toward Zen and surrounded him. It seemed that there was no escaping them. It was a magic killing array. Ordinary arrays could only produce illusions. Thus they imposed little threat to the people inside. The illusions were more likely to disturb people's minds, confuse them, and then trap them. However, the magic killing array was different. These illusions could kill people. What was worse, masters who produced the magic killing array were good at hiding, being patient, biding their time, and finally striking a deadly blow. Even fire killing array. Although he was also a talented master of magic arrays, a saint from Cloud sect was shocked. To his surprise, he found a disciple from Cloud sect who was capable of setting the heaven fire killing array. Never thought that a disciple from the inner circle of Blackrock Peak would succeed in producing such a perfect and powerful heaven fire killing array. Master Yu, you're well prepared, aren't you? The saint smiled and said to Master Yu, who came from Blackrock Peak. Master Yu was proud of the praise he received from a saint. Saint Yang, please. You're embarrassing me. Although Mac did this, its power is nothing when compared to yours, he replied. Saint Yang shook his head and answered, it's marvelous that a disciple who has consummated the nature level can set a heaven fire killing array. With several years of practice, I believe that nobody in Cloud sect will be able to beat him in the magic array. He's a real genius. I can give him that, said Saint Yang honestly. Saint Yang could only succeed in setting the heaven fire killing array after he had reached the illuminating soul realm. In that regard, Mac was more talented than him. On the other side, the force of the heaven fire killing array was terrifying. The force of heaven fire is stored in this killing array. I intended to use it when I battle with those personal disciples. However, I have to use it here and now, because you destroyed my star-shifting flag. Believe me, you'll regret your foolishness soon, laughed Mac wildly. He pulled out a magic array tablet from his robe and fiddled with it with his fingers. Then, lights of life vitality were connected with the array flags through the tablet. Zen, surrounded by the heaven fire killing array, felt as though the sky and the earth were spinning. Soon, he was engulfed by complete darkness. This killing array separated people inside from the outer world. The audience had no idea what was happening inside. Zen had witnessed the workings of a magic array many times. The illusions were created by the array flags to confuse an enemy. Cloud sect's Bloody Mountain and all other mysterious places used by warriors to practice their martial arts had been using magic arrays. However, none of those magic arrays were as good as the fairyland in the fairy palace. Zen entered another space after the magic array engulfed him. Inside, it was extremely hot. The parched earth was full of cracks, like the wrinkles on the face of a 90-year-old woman. Zen looked around and saw several fire pits surrounding him. Not far away, Mac was floating in the sky, smiling hideously. A euro o Zen, I love seeing my enemies suffer more than anything else. Seeing your face burn will cheer me. Your skin will feel scorched, and your face will be a mess. Your pain will excite me the most. Ha ha. Now, I'm gonna burn every part of your body, and soon, you'll beg for mercy. A euro lights flickered on the magic array tablet. Then, the fire pits surrounding Zen were refueled, and a burning smell filled the air. A euro o are these illusions? Is Mac an illusion? A euro Zen stood quietly and kept a sharp lookout. He wouldn't act till he figured out how this magic killing array worked. A euro o bang. A euro. Flames erupted from the countless fire pits and flew into the sky. Then, dozens of stone men crawled from the fire pits. The stone men were burning red, and flames could be seen extending behind their backs as if they were red cloaks that stretched into the sky. The stone men stood and then ran toward Zen. As the air became hotter, Zen felt as though his face was being scorched. The euro force of this heaven fire killing array is formidable. I intended to advance from the group competitions while hiding my real strength and only using my body as my weapon. However, disciples of Cloud Sect are much stronger than regular warriors from the outer world. A euro. Ordinary warriors who had reached the pinnacle of the nature level stood no chance to defeat him. However, Mac did impose a significant threat to Zen. Apparently, Zen made a mistake by underestimating disciples from Cloud Sect. They weren't like the weak warriors from the other parts of Eastern region. A euro o bang, bang, bang. A euro. The stone men's footsteps echoed. As they approached, Zen finally responded. The magic killing array, if created by some real masters, could lower the martial arts abilities of the people inside it. On top of that, the gravity inside the magical land could also be changed so that opponents couldn't walk, let alone fight or defend themselves. Luckily, Mac had a long way to go, and his arrays had a weakness. Zen rushed to one of the stone men. Since the burning stone men were nothing but stones, Zen planned to smash them one by one with his fists. However, as he approached them, Zen felt the temperature rising sharply. The heat was almost unbearable. A euro o go, before it's too late. A euro. Knowing that he couldn't resist the crushing heat, Zen had to retreat. A euro o aha, I'm the god inside my magic killing array. I made the stone men, and they exist in my illusions. I imagined that they are made of falling stones from the sky. The fires are heaven fire, not regular fire. There's no escaping this, although it's said that your body is indestructible. A euro Mac laughed coldly. A euro o you the god in your magic array? A euro asked Zen. A sardonic grin lit up Zen's face. A euro don't be a blasted fool. You set this incredible magic array. I will give you that. But you're weak, and this is all that you can achieve. I'm sorry, but you lack imagination, A euro he added. A magic array master could set a magic array. But its power was limited, as it depended on the strength of its creator. A euro Odin talk nonsense. Die. A euro Mac stretched his hand and pointed a finger at the burning stone men. In the next instant, they quickened their steps and moved toward Zen. Seeing the looming threat, Zen gritted his teeth and rushed to one of them. Although the heaven fire burning on those stone men's bodies was intense, Zen's body was extremely strong. It was equivalent to a mid-grade spiritual weapon and capable of resisting such kind of fire. A euro o bang. A euro. Zen lashed out at the burning stone man closest to him. His fist penetrated its body, and a hole appeared. Seconds later, the hole became bigger, and many narrow cracks formed. A euro o bang. A euro. The stone man shattered. Mac uttered a heartrending cry. Some of his spirit had been put into the stone men. When Zen smashed one of the stone men, Mac felt the pain and screamed. A euro oh they are weak, just like you. I'm gonna smash them one by one. A euro. The fire left Zen feeling miserable, even though no real harm was caused to his body. He could bear more considerable pain than this. A euro oh bang, bang, bang. A euro. Zen moved quickly and killed another 2 stone men within seconds. Before Zen could turn and attack another stone man, he heard Mac shout, A euro oh flame of meteorite, in my name, please burn everything. Explode. A euro. Zen was confused and hesitated for a moment. Then, he saw the stone man explode. Since he was standing in front of the stone man, Zen was engulfed by the fire. A euro oh you killed 4 of my stone men. That's quite impressive. Even practitioners at the illuminating soul realm can't do that. But it is a joke that you're so confident and that you believe you can beat me, A euro Mac. said to Zen and smiled coldly, as he floated in the sky. The fire crackled on the ground. A long time passed before the fire finally died out. The magic killing array could create illusions and use them to kill people inside. While people trapped in the array could get hurt, it wasn't their body that got damaged, but their spirit. If Zen were burned to death inside the magic killing array, his soul could be severely wounded, and he would become an idiot. Burn. After you know nothing and remember nothing, I'll take you out of this killing array. Then, I'll teach you how to behave yourself. Ha ha. He smiled. Mac could imagine the tremendous pain being inflicted on Zen. He imagined Zen was burning alive, and begging for mercy desperately. He would be like a fish thrown into a frying pan, and only death awaited him. When the fire finally died out, a figure appeared. His body emitted a golden light, like a god. He looked intimidating. Mac didn't expect this. His pupils dilated as if he had seen a ghost. Chapter 232, Defeated Mac. Fire, where's the fire? Mac stuttered, with a look of disbelief. The fire on the stone men was not ordinary at all. Even in the heaven fire killing array, the power of different kinds of heavenly fire varied. Meanwhile, the effect of the force depended on the realm. Mac had always been confident about the fire. Once, when he had gone out for cultivation, a meteorite fell and made a big hole in the ground. The flame had burned for 3 days and nights in the pit. During this time, Mac had observed and contemplated the flame. Mac was lucky because not every practitioner had the opportunity to observe a meteorite's flame. Since then, the fire had become a powerful weapon for him. However, Mac was unable to use the meteorite's flame at will. Only after the killing array had been arranged, could he transform his life vitality into this powerful flame and release it through the illusion. While the stone man was an illusion created by Mac, the meteorite's flame was real. At that moment, Zen stood before him, unscathed and surrounded by a strong aura. Why is he safe from the flame of the meteorite? Is he immune to fire? No, it's impossible. Even the legendary son of fire can't be immune to fire. He can only offset the damage from the flame of a meteorite after his understanding of fire has reached a certain degree, Mac thought. I can't believe the flame didn't burn you. Stone men of flame, come on. Go. Mac ordered with gritted teeth. The stone men rushed at Zen from all directions. When attacked by fire, Zen's body would produce warm currents that would absorb the damage. During this time, Zen would be in a peaceful state. However, Zen noticed that the meteorite's flame had not changed his body much. He looked at the dense golden Sanskrit words on his body and shook his head. At the very beginning, his body had been refined by evil land's fire, then by the fire of the earth's core, and the demon's holy fire. Although the flame of the meteorite was powerful, its purity degree was much lower than that of the fire of the earth's core and the demon's holy fire. Besides, since Zen's body had reached the middle grade level of a spiritual weapon, the flame of the meteorite was not powerful enough to refine his body. That was why his body hadn't absorbed this flame. In other words, Zen's body had refused to absorb the flame of the meteorite, because the level of the flame was too low. Instead of forming a golden whirlpool to absorb the flame, his body had released some golden Sanskrit words to protect him from harm. With tens of thousands of Sanskrit words attached to his skin, Zen looked like a golden man. Now, he was fearless in the face of the stone men of flame. A sneer appeared on Zen's face when he saw the stone men coming toward him. Break. Zen shouted. Then he reached out and punched them. Bang. 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 In the blink of an eye, Zen crushed a few more stone men of flame. Now, the remaining stone men of flame had gathered around Zen. With a roar, Mac triggered the explosion of all stone men at the same time. Explode. I don't believe you can survive this explosion. In the illusion, a red flame roared hundreds of feet into the air. Fortunately, the explosion had been triggered in an illusion. According to the rules of the magic array, all the energy would be firmly controlled within the illusion, and not even a touch of energy would escape from it. If the magic array broke and began to leak energy, it meant that the magic array no longer worked. The soaring flame lasted for a few seconds before it burst into the fire of the meteorite. Then it gradually faded. Mac took a deep breath. I made it. I didn't expect Zen to be so difficult. I had to trigger the flame of the meteorite that I have fostered for so long. If a practitioner at the second grade of the nature level like Zen is so powerful, then I will be no match for him when he reaches the pinnacle of the nature level. In fact, the illusion was Mac's spiritual projection. Now, since he was basking in the joy of success with a calm mind, the illusion was quiet. However, a short while later, the wind rose, and clouds began to gather in the illusion. Mac couldn't keep calm any longer. Just like his mind, the peace in the illusion had been broken. The nearby ground began to shake, and the cracks on it expanded gradually. These changes reflected Mac's restlessness. Oilthaw, the flame of the meteorite lit up at the same time, he remains unhurt. Mac murmured, a touch of horror flashing in his eyes. After blocking the flames of the meteorite, Zen waved his arm, and then the golden Sanskrit words gradually sunk into his body. He strode out of the huge hole in the ground and stared at Mac with a sneer. Up until now, you have taken the initiative to attack me. Unfortunately, you couldn't hurt me. Now, it's my turn. Mac panicked. What scared him was that he didn't know what was going to happen. He couldn't figure out what kind of skill Zen would use and how powerful he was. The best way to judge a practitioner's competence was by the realm and cultivation level he had reached. Of course, it didn't mean that one could rely on these completely. Access to better cultivation methods and weapons meant that those practitioners were more likely to challenge higher-ranking practitioners. Sometimes, they would even challenge practitioners several levels higher. Even so, they would have a limit. Practitioners at the Illuminating Soul realm would have been bedraggled had Mac attacked them. However, Zen wasn't. It was an incredible achievement for a practitioner who had just reached the second grade of the nature level. Has he already broken through the Illuminating Soul realm? Is he hiding his competence just for the Cloud Road and the reward? That's impossible. Everyone participating in the All Peaks competition would have had to pass various tests. And their skeletal age would have been checked before the competition. So it would be impossible for Zen to hide his real cultivation level. Furthermore, those elders and saints are not that gullible. Mac rationalized. Mac felt tremendous stress and pressure since he couldn't gauge Zen's real competence. Go to perdition. 100 men magic killing. Mac shouted and waved his hand. Then 100 shadows appeared. They looked just like Mac and possessed about the same level of competence as him. As soon as they jumped down, these shadows rushed toward Zen. They waved the spears in their hands. Mac wanted to overwhelm Zen with these shadows. Zen's expression didn't change. The energy of the phoenix crystal on his right arm suddenly gushed and circulated through his body along his meridians. Now, Zen's body was as light as a piece of paper. Next, he transformed himself into a thin line and dashed toward Mac. Stop him. Mac ordered. He waved his hand, and the shadows stood in Zen's way, blocking him. Zen narrowed his eyes, and the dragon scales in his body were half lit. Even if only half of the dragon scales had lit up, the energy they would release would be incredible. Now, Zen seemed to have transformed into a ferocious wild beast. What was more horrible was that he was not only powerful but extremely fast as well. Puff, 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 When Zen charged forward at a random angle, both the spears and the shadows turned into starlight and faded away in the magic array before becoming a touch of energy and returning to the array flag. Soon, Zen had broken through the shadow wall made by the 100 shadows at the peak of the nature level. Then he aimed for Mac. As the 100 men magic killing was not his most powerful attack method, Mac hadn't meant to rely on these shadows to fight against Zen. In fact, the flame of the meteorite was his most effective weapon. However, since it could not harm Zen, Mac meant to buy himself some time when he summoned the shadows. To his surprise, 100 shadows at the peak of the nature level didn't cause Zen the least bit of trouble. Now, Zen was charging at him. Bang. Mac suddenly found everything turn blur. Then he flew out and slammed on the ground. Outside the magic array, this round of the competition had ended. Since no other battles were ongoing, the audience focused on the fight between Zen and Mac. Yehudi sat still and adjusted his breath. After eating the red cloud pill, he needed to mix it with his life vitality so that the pill would spread through the meridians of his body. Only in this way could the effect of the red cloud pill be activated. Now, in spite of focusing on the red cloud pill, he kept an eye on the battle ring. Yehudi had always kept calm no matter what the situation. Because his mother was a concubine, he had been mistreated since he was a child. Later, he had become the best disciple of Drizzle Peak, step by step, through his efforts and extraordinary talent. Although Drizzle Peak ranked last among the 33 peaks, his cultivation was beyond most disciples of all the peaks. Yehudi had never been self-content. He had seen many high-level cultivators, so he knew that his achievements were not worthy of being celebrated. No matter what the conditions, he had always dedicated himself to his martial arts and climbed the peak of cultivation practice. However, he had received a setback from Mac today. Not just Yehudi, all the disciples from Drizzle Peak looked sullen and defeated. Except for Zen, Yehudi was Drizzle Peak's principal disciple. In fact, many disciples didn't know Zen, but they had heard of Yehudi. Yehudi was filled with shame. As the disciple with the highest cultivation level at Drizzle Peak, he had been defeated by Mac. And he hadn't been able to fight back. A sense of shame, like a ghost, hovered in his mind. He felt as if a stone was being pressed against his chest and he could hardly breathe. If Yehudi couldn't stop thinking in this way, he would be stuck at the pinnacle of the nature level, and he would be unable to make further progress in the future. Now, he could only rely on himself or Zen to get rid of his mental burden. If Zen could teach Mac a lesson on behalf of Drizzle Peak, Yehudi would be relieved. Zen, you must win. Yehudi encouraged Zen. At the other end of the battle ring, Master Yu was talking with Saint Yang. The atmosphere of their conversation seemed very relaxed. Chapter 233, Giving him a good beating. Mac showed an extraordinary talent for the array as soon as he joined Blackrock Peak. You arranged a secret cultivation place for the outer disciples of our peak at that time, called the Brilliance Body Refining Array. Do you remember it? Master Yu asked with a smile. Saint Yang nodded and said, I remember it. At that time, only a few peaks such as Blackrock Peak, Skytop Peak, and Azure Peak owned secret cultivation places for outer disciples. The Brilliance Body Refining Array was what I arranged for outer disciples of your peak to refine their bodies. Most of the outer disciples of Cloud Sect hadn't reached the nature level. Many of them remained at the marrow refining level, the 5th grade of the body refining realm. So Saint Yang arranged the magic array at that time to help the outer disciples clear the impurities from their bodies. One day, the array didn't work properly. I didn't know what happened. Maybe it was the torrential rain and the thunderbolt the day before that led to the malfunction. I knew you were busy, so I didn't want to bother you. But I couldn't find a person who knew how to repair the array. That's when Mac offered to help me. I didn't believe he could fix it as he was just a new outer disciple while the magic array was sophisticated and powerful. But I permitted him to try, and to my surprise, he did it. So far, the magic array has been running smoothly. Haha, said Master Yu with a smile. Really? He fixed the array? Well, I'll take a closer look at his battle. If he can make it to the top 100, I will consider accepting him as my personal disciple, said Saint Yang as he stroked his beard. Master Yu smiled and said, Omak has been focused on the research of array for years. He has great attainments in arranging magic array, while his fighting ability is relatively weaker. Master Yu knew that if Saint Yang accepted Mac as a personal disciple, he would get a huge reward. He was aware that it didn't matter whether Mac was good at fighting or not. Saint Yang was more interested in Mac's gift for magic array. What was more, Mac's ranking in the All Peaks competition was not that important either. As the second most powerful peak in Cloud Sect, Blackrock Peak had many talented disciples, some of whom had reached the illuminating soul realm. They were the key disciples to the victory of the All Peaks competition. It doesn't matter. One can practice step by step to improve his realms of cultivation. This is true for a person's fighting ability as well. But the attainments in the magic array are determined by his gift. If Mac is really a talented young man, I'll not overlook him. Saint Yang waved his hand and answered. Let's watch the battle first. I believe he should easily win the game. Look, the light of the magic array is turning dim. As they talked about the battle, the light in the arena gradually dimmed, which meant that the battle on it was over. Master Yu turned to the arena and was about to say something, but his voice was caught in his throat, and no words came. Mac lost. Mac was lying on the arena, while Zen stood in the center, straight as a tower. Others might not know Mac's real strength, but Master Yu was familiar with what Mac could do. Even a strong man at the illuminating soul realm would not find it easy to escape if trapped by Mac's magic array. There was an incredible expression on Saint Yang's face. Mac's opponent was only at the 2nd grade of the nature level. How could he break and destroy the heaven fire killing array? Even though Mac was only at the consummation of the nature level, and he couldn't unleash all the power of the heaven fire killing array, it was unlikely to be destroyed by a disciple at the second grade of the nature level. Mac struggled to his feet. After Zen punched him, Mac felt as though he had been in a savage head-on fight with a wild animal. He struggled to open his mouth and wanted to tell the referee that he admitted defeat. As he opened his mouth, another powerful blow landed on his face. Obam. Zen gave Mac a bash on the nose and broke his nose bone. An expression of fear came over Mac's face. He looked up at Zen and gasped, Ozen, how dare you beat me? The battle is over. Ohi, it's not over. You haven't admitted defeat, nor have you passed out, said Zen scornfully. Zen was avenging Yehudi. He would give Mac a good thrashing just as Mac had done to Yehudi. Mac realized at this time that Zen, who appeared to be an ordinary inner disciple, was more ruthless than he had thought. He had no choice but to wait for the opportunity to admit defeat to the referee. But as he opened his mouth, another punch came. Zen didn't give him the slightest chance. Obam. Zen punched him on the face. Blood spurted all over Mac's face, and a few of his teeth broke and fell on the ground. Although pills could cure these injuries, and broken teeth could regenerate, Mac was afraid that it would take him a long time to recover from the damage. Zen didn't give Mac any chance to admit defeat. He controlled the power of his fists so that Mac wouldn't pass out. At the same time, he tried to make Mac feel as much physical pain as possible. The referee watched the scene coldly. As a referee, he was just following the rules. He didn't care about the life and death of these disciples. Seeing this, many disciples of Cloud Sect began to whisper among themselves. Ozen is so cruel. He won't allow his opponent to admit defeat. He has gone too far. You didn't watch the previous match, did you? In my opinion, Mac is getting what he deserves. What do you mean? Earlier today, Mac defeated Yehudi, the topmost inner disciple at Drizzle Peak. But Mac didn't spare Yehudi. He went on beating him until Yehudi fainted. He didn't let Yehudi go at that time. I think it fair that he is now being attacked violently by Zen, who also comes from Drizzle Peak. Mac deserves it. I see. He is getting what he deserves. But Zen is too strong. He is only at the second grade of the nature level, and he can avenge Yehudi. It's incredible. He must be stronger than the Jacques years ago. Jacques was also at the second grade of the nature level 3 years ago, and he was able to become one of the top 100 disciples. Considering Zen's fighting capability, he should be able to make it to the top 100, too. I think he is likely to be selected as a personal disciple. There was a lot of discussion about the battle, and many more people were giving their opinions. Oh good. Well done. Master Wen jumped with joy and his face flustered with excitement. It looked as if he were the man who was beating Mac in the arena. The disciples of Drizzle Peak held their heads high as pride filled them. Yehudi was the most excited. He sat cross-legged on the ground, but he was no longer focused on the absorption of the pill. His fists were so tightly clenched that his nails broke through the skin on his palm. Blood oozed from the wound. Ozen, thank you. Murmured Yehudi. The humiliation brought by Mac and the subsequent shame Yehudi felt seemed to be gradually dissipating. The disciples of Blackrock Peak, however, had sour expressions on their faces at this time. Master Yu's face darkened as he gloomily watched the battle in the arena. Oh Master Yu, let me stop him. Said a man next to Master Yu. He wore a blue gown with dragons painted on it. A purple hat glimmered on his head, and a jade pendant dangled on his waist. His dignified bearing marked him out from the common people. His surname was Su, and he was the 6th son of the Burning Sky Emperor. His name was Nile. Nile inherited the cultivation talent of his father and entered the illuminating soul realm at the age of 24. Unlike the 3rd and 7th sons of the Emperor, who were fighting for the throne, Nile immersed himself in martial arts and cultivation. He had no desire to pursue the throne. If Nile had to choose which of his siblings would inherit the throne, he would select Rei, the 3rd son of the Emperor, because Rei was his elder brother, while the other princes were his half-brothers. If possible, he was willing to help Rei ascend to the throne. Master Yu shook his head and said, Oino. If you go in the arena, you will break the rules of Cloud Sect. I'll stop him. Master Yu walked up to the edge of the arena and shouted, Ozen, Mac has lost the game. Stop beating him, euro. Zen struck Mac again. He gave an icy look to Master Yu. With an expression of contemptuous scorn, he asked, oh he should I stop beating him? When he was attacking Yehudi, I didn't see you come forward and stop him, euro. Oh how dare you? He is a disciple of Blackrock Peak. Euro Master Yu shouted. He was the master of Blackrock Peak. He thought Zen would obey his order, which would brook no interference. He wouldn't plead with Zen. Euro so what if he is a disciple of Blackrock Peak? Do you mean the disciples of Blackrock Peak have higher status than that of Drizzle Peak? Do you mean the disciples of Drizzle Peak, Vulture Peak, and Sea Peak deserve to be beaten if they lose, while the disciples of Blackrock Peak are superior to them and shouldn't be beaten? Euro Zen asked. Zen's words echoed the inner thoughts of many disciples. Although Zen was merely pointing out the injustice in this competition, in fact, this kind of unfair phenomenon happened from time to time in Cloud Sect. Not every disciple was treated equally. When disputes occurred, it was usually the top-ranking peaks that decided who was right and who was wrong. Over the years, the disciples and masters of peaks that ranked at the bottom had suffered unfairly. Therefore, Zen's words mirrored what many disciples and masters of low-ranking peaks felt. Even Master Wang of Sea Peak, who had a feud with Drizzle Peak, nodded his head silently. Strictly speaking, there was nothing wrong with the rules of Cloud Sect. Absolute fairness didn't exist in the world. It was reasonable for Cloud Sect to pour good resources into the stronger peaks and the more gifted disciples. But now, Zen stood victorious in the arena, while Mac was the one who was beaten. According to the rules of Cloud Sect, the stronger man set the rules. Zen's victory showed that he was more powerful, more gifted, and more promising than Mac, so his status should be superior to Mac's. Since his behavior hadn't broken the rules of Cloud Sect, why did Master Yu of Blackrock Peak object? You, do you know what will happen if you offend Blackrock Peak? In the subsequent battles, you are bound to meet more disciples of Blackrock Peak. If you let Mac go, I'll ask other disciples not to make trouble for you. If you don't agree, I'll let them return to you 10 times the pain Mac has suffered. Seeing that his persuasion didn't work, Master Yu resorted to threatening Zen. Oriali. Zen threw another punch at Mac before sneering, you'll right. I'll wait and see how the disciples of Blackrock Peak will return the pain to me. Zen was not afraid of Master Yu. He continued to hit Mac at his own pace. Mac was so weak that he had no power to resist. But Zen ensured that his attacks weren't powerful enough to let him faint, nor did Zen allow Mac the opportunity to admit defeat. It appeared as though Zen was gruesomely torturing Mac. However, Mac seemed to have forgotten that he enjoyed humiliating others like this. Finally, Zen kicked Mac to the sky. Mac collided with the light curtain of the enchanted barrier and passed out. The referee declared, Ozen from Drizzle Peak won. Mac from Blackrock Peak lost. Mac's failure had attracted the attention of many people. A few people knew that Mac was not as weak as he appeared in this fight and that his magic killing array was very powerful. But they didn't realize how strong Zen was. Most people didn't even know how Zen won the game. After all, the battle between Zen and Mac was carried out in the magic killing array, and the light curtain released by the array had blocked everyone's sight. Kenneth was an exception. He glared at Zen and frowned. No one knew what he was thinking. Chapter 234. Another arrogant genius. Most disciples of Cloud Sect agreed with Zen's tit-for-tat as it was clear that Mac had gone too far and deserved that misfortune. They were also deeply impressed and intimidated by Zen's cruel means. Zen was quite ferocious for his age. While the powerful disciples remained calm, the less powerful ones were looking at Zen with awe in their eyes. In their mind, they were thinking that if they met Zen in the battle ring, they would lose their momentum and confidence in an instant. After all, that kind of thing that had happened to a disciple at the second-grade nature level was truly incredible. It was known that the disciples taking part in today's All Peaks competition were at least at the 7th grade or 8th grade of nature level. A half of these disciples were already at the consummation grade, while a few of them were masters of the Illuminating Soul Realm. The Illuminating Soul Realm warriors hadn't seen the real strength of Zen as he chose not to show it so early. Thus, they simply noticed his cruel means and looked down upon him. After all, the gap between nature-level disciples and the masters of Illuminating Soul Realm was still too big. Apart from the rare geniuses like Rocher, it was impossible for the other disciples to compete with the Illuminating Soul Realm warriors. Rocher was already at the consummation grade, while Zen was quite far behind him. Zen's nature level was only at second grade, which wouldn't warrant the slight attention from any illuminating soul realm warriors. It was known to all that top inner disciples from each peak seldom participated in the trial of killing demons. And although Zen had attended the trial and even showcased a remarkable performance, it wasn't a big deal like what happened to Leonard. Leonard was known for his great skills, but he could still not qualify to represent Skytop Peak in the All Peaks competition. So Zen's performance was insignificant for those highly skilled legendary figures of each peak at that time. As Zen walked out of the ring, Master Wen was thrilled. He wanted to run to Zen and hug him tight, but he held the urge. Winning this match meant that the young disciple would stand out in the group competition. More importantly, Zen had avenged Yehudi's defeat and helped Drizzle Peak win after a long time of humiliation. If one would ask why Cloud Sect was divided into many peaks, the answer was very simple. The purpose was to create competitions among the peaks. All peaks competition could be watched on site and through a live broadcast shown in a large picture slab. If Zen didn't avenge Yehudi's defeat, it would be a big blow to Drizzle Peak's confidence. The disciples of Drizzle Peak would be ashamed and discouraged to cultivate their skills. The Drizzle Peak's representatives in the competition didn't know that the disciples left in the peak were tensed but fired up at the same time. In the Drizzle Peak's main practice area, some of the disciples were practicing hard, while most of them were gathered around the picture slab to watch the live broadcast of the competition. In fact, when Mac hit Yehudi earlier, they had already been tensed and fired up. They felt the pain of Mac's attack as if they were hit directly. They were filled with fury and even started planning to protest Mac's uncalled for behavior. Yet, when they saw Zen made Mac's head swell with his powerful punches, their indignation gradually faded, and they burst into loud cheers. To be more exact, Zen's actions washed away their resentment and somehow brought back their peak's pride. Ozen has the power to defeat all the disciples from Blackrock Peak. One of them even cried out. Witnessing Zen's back-to-back wins, most disciples totally forgot Zen's current level and started to believe that he could make it to the top 100. Getting to the top 100 was a breakthrough for the Drizzle Peak and it could be their best win in a long time. However, there were still a few disciples who were not confident that Zen could defeat the other more powerful participants in the competition. Let's not forget that Zen is only at the second grade of nature level. But those in the top 100 are basically the masters of illuminating soul realm. I'm afraid that Zen may not have the chance. One of them said in a concerned tone. But before the disciple finished sharing his thoughts, one of the thrilled disciples from Drizzle Peak interrupted him immediately and bellowed, what are you talking about? Zen is the rare genius that we haven't seen in Drizzle Peak for 1,000 years. Who cares if they are the masters of illuminating soul realm? I have faith that Zen can defeat all of them. That's right, we haven't seen his real potential yet. Who knows, maybe his real strength is greater than the illuminating soul realm, another disciple added proudly. It might be that the disciples were blindly optimistic about Zen's strength. But since Yehudi was defeated, Zen had become the only hope for Drizzle Peak. Although they knew that Zen might find it hard to defeat the disciples at the illuminating soul realm, they wanted to keep their hopes high. The round of group competitions continued. It was only through actual combat could the true strength and potential of a disciple be examined. The winners would be qualified to enter the succeeding competitions, while the losers' journey in the competition would end. As expected, there were new geniuses being discovered at the ongoing competitions. To name a few, there were Jill Kwan from Lady Peak, Roche Hua from Skytop Peak, and Jason Zhu from Azure Peak. After 3 rounds, the referee announced another key competition. Jeff from Skytop Peak versus Kim from Jade Peak. They were the 2 top-ranked disciples in the Cloud Sect list. Not everyone could be part of the Cloud Sect list. Only those among the top 1,000 strongest disciples could be included on the list. However, this list would only be updated according to the regular competition performance of the major disciples in the battle ring. However, considering the progress that the disciples were making in cultivating their strength every day, it was safe to assume that the list was not reflecting the actual strength of each disciple. Given this circumstance, the Cloud Sect would make minor adjustments to the list every month. But the major significant adjustments happened every 3 years when the disciples' performance would be re-evaluated through the All Peaks competition. This way, the disciples would be accurately ranked based on the competition results. All Peaks competition attracted the participation of almost all the best disciples from Cloud Sect, except for a small number of those who chose to practice in their respective secret practice rooms or outside Cloud sect. There were more than 700 disciples participating in the competition, so almost all of them were on the list. Except Zen. Although his improvement was rapid and he defeated some disciples on the battle like Fren and the outer disciples from Vulture Peak, his performances weren't recorded because none of them were from the list. Moreover, the strength gaps of those disciples on the list were quite big. To be included among the top 1,000 might be easy. The strongest peaks could get their top 30 into the list, while the weaker peaks like Sea Peak and Drizzle Peak could only get their top 10 qualified disciples into the list. However, to be included in the top 400 would be more challenging. Most of the top 400 on the list were those whose nature level was at consummation grade, while the top 100 disciples on the list were basically the masters of illuminating soul realm. The two people fighting on the battle ring now was Jeff Mew who ranked 99, while the other one was Kim Yu who ranked 72. Before the said battle, the disciples of Illuminating Soul Realm who participated in the group competitions either had beaten their opponents or their opponents admitted defeats the instant they came up to the ring. It was obvious that the disciples at consummation grade of nature level would lose to those of Illuminating Soul Realm, so the former didn't bother to fight the latter. In other words, the common disciples with consummation grade didn't have such guts or the power at all. Unless they were the freak geniuses like Rocher, they wouldn't mind losing to a greater opponent. Mac, an array technique genius who had challenged Zen earlier, had the ability to challenge the disciples of Illuminating Soul Realm. His magic array was so powerful that even the masters of Illuminating Soul Realm would be trapped in it and it wouldn't be easy for them to get out of it. It was only a pity that he had met Zen. Because of Zen's special body, he could completely endure Mac's fire and Mac had no way to defeat him. As a result, Mac was beaten up furiously. Even though he applied pills from Blackrock Peak, there was a high chance that he could not recover fast and that he would be disqualified to attend the All Peaks competition. Both Jeff and Kim were new entrants of the Illuminating Soul Realm. There was a big realm gap between Illuminating Soul Realm and consummation grade of nature level. When that gap narrowed, the disciples could be able to grasp the method of burning life vitality, and their fighting power would soar sharply. Therefore, their competition naturally received a lot of earnest attention. Jeff was the representative of Skytop Peak, the number 1 peak among the 33 peaks, which started increasing influence in recent years, while Kim represented the Jade Peak, a well-established peak. The Jade Peak once occupied the top place of 33 peaks for a long time, but in recent years, it gradually had a decline in its strength and gradually had been caught up and surpassed by these powerful peaks like Skytop Peak, Blackrock Peak, and Azure Peak. But that didn't mean Jade Peak could be underestimated. After all, it had gained many resource and benefit from Cloud Sect. It had the largest number of secret practice places amongst the 33 peaks. Although these 6 secret places were not as good as those within Cloud Sect that charged points for practice, they were at least open to their disciples for free. Many of its disciples got great benefits, and they would practice day and night continuously. It was hoped that someday its disciples would make a difference and bring the peak back to its original place. Kim ranked 2nd place among all the disciples of Jade Peak. Despite being in the 2nd place, he had been cultivating for a few years, so no one knew what level he had already reached. After all, the disciples of Illuminating Soul Realm rarely competed on the battle ring, and the top 100 ranking had rarely been changed and would only be readjusted every 3 years. And Jeff just broke through the consummation grade of nature level a year ago and entered the Illuminating Soul Realm. When at the consummation grade of nature level, he was already on the top, and now his strength was even more unfathomable. It was a crucial fight between 2 disciples of the Illuminating Soul Realm, thus, it received a lot of attention. Both of them were willing to give their all in the competition. As a matter of fact, neither Jeff nor Kim had failed in their previous competitions. Even if one of them lost today, it wouldn't be much of an impact to them and they would still stand out from the group competition because they were masters of Illuminating Soul Realm. Yet, both were the top and powerful figures, how could they tolerate losing to another? The disciples' firm resolve and outstanding talent were the keys to enter such a high realm. While the talent was one thing that could not be improved, the will of martial arts was more important. Only those who had a strong resolve to never lose to other people could further improve in their martial arts. If only for the sake of gaining an advantage, one could deliberately preserve his strength and made a compromise. This kind of trick might help a disciple win for a while, but he was doomed to go not very far along the road of martial arts. While the 2 disciples of Illuminating Soul Realm were fighting against each other, Their fighting scene was quite impressive, with a huge sound caused by the combustion and explosion of life vitality. The aftermath of the battle shocked a lot of disciples. Jeff practiced the life vitality of the wind system with unpredictable movements. Kim, on the other hand, practiced the life vitality of the earth system that was steady and slow. Their fighting movements were changing rapidly, which was rather dazzling and breathtaking. In the end, Kim had defeated Jeff by using a highly risky attack. Witnessing Kim's victory, everyone was gasping in admiration. But despite Kim's marvelous strength, he only ranked the second place on Jade Peak. With the current strength of its disciples, Jade Peak could once again rise to the top of the 33 peaks. After 6 rounds, Kim was assigned to fight with a Skytop Peak disciple again, and this time he was to fight against Rocher. It was Rocher whose nature level was at consummation grade versus Kim at the illuminating soul realm. Normally, any competition between disciples of such two different levels would be predictable. But because it was Rocher fighting, the result would be a mystery until the battle ended. It was said that Rocher had the strength to defeat the disciples of Illuminating Soul Realm, but no one had ever seen it. Today was the first time that everyone would witness Rocher's strength. Aren't you going to draw your sword? Kim asked in a cold tone. Since their match began, Rocher hadn't pulled out his sword. His hands remained clasped behind his back. Rocher's action was an intolerable insult for Kim, and it was starting to irritate the latter. Any disciple at consummation grade of nature level fighting a disciple at the illuminating soul realm without drawing his sword was deemed arrogant and crazy. Insulting the master of illuminating soul realm was the stupidest thing to do. And everyone was shocked when they heard Rocher's response. He would I can beat you without it. Buzz. All the other disciples of Cloud Sect went wild and began to murmur to each other as they couldn't believe that Rocher had dared to insult the master of the Illuminating Soul Realm. But the disciples of Illuminating Soul Realm from Skytop Peak were not surprised with what they heard. Some of them were wearing a smile of confidence in their faces. Orocher is going to defeat Kim with his bare hands. One of them said in a proud tone. I agree. With his current strength, he doesn't need to use his sword, another disciple added immediately. Let's see how far he can stick to not using his sword. I know that with his current strength, he can go on with the competition without using his sword and still end up in the top 80. Maybe, when he faces one of the top 60 disciples, he will need to draw that sword. One disciple shared his detailed analysis. If others heard Skytop Peak's illuminating soul realm disciples' evaluation of Rocher's chance, they would be surprised. Rocher, a disciple at the consummation grade of nature level, would be included among the top 80 without using his sword. That would sound very ambitious and unreal. Of course, those were the thoughts from Skytop Peak's disciples. But the disciples from other peaks, especially Jade Peak, didn't think the same. Although Jade Peak ranked only in the 6th place now, they still regarded themselves as a well-established peak and the senior peak amongst the other peaks. Orocher is too arrogant. We must teach him a good lesson. One disciple roared angrily. I could only hope that Kim will not show any mercy to Rocher. He should give that arrogant man a taste of his most deadly attack so that Rocher will learn his lessons the hard way. That way, he can learn to be humble and modest. Another disciple said pointedly. It is true that Rocher is a rare genius. But does that mean he is a strong and powerful disciple? I don't think so. Let's see how he will take it after Kim defeats him. For sure he will meet his inner demon if he gets defeated in this match. It will be impossible for him to cultivate his strength in the future. One more disciple suggested sharply. The offensive and harsh reproaches and curses from the disciples of Jade Peak were clearly heard as they didn't intend to keep their voices down. All the saints, the respectable elders, and even Kenneth had heard their dirty words, but they did not stop them. On one hand, Cloud Sect was not a place to cultivate elegant and refined scholars, but warriors, while on the other hand, by making the atmosphere competitive, the hidden potentials of each disciple would surely come out. Just when Jade Peak's disciples were resentful and disturbed, the rest of the other peaks were in a much better mood. Indeed, Rocher was arrogant. As for the match result, they were looking forward to him being defeated by Kim. This way, Rocher would learn how to behave later. Zen was standing behind Master Wen, looking at the next match on the ring. He was wearing a poker face, but his eyes were glued to Rocher, who he believed was not an easy one to deal with. His gut told him that he would soon face Rocher in the competition. At the moment, the match between Roche and Kim was about to start. Chapter 235, The Sword Step. Kim stood tall and solemn like a mountain. To help himself stand out among the horde of talented disciples at Jade Peak, and to rank the second place among the inner disciples, he had made an awful lot of efforts and sacrifices. Frankly, he didn't hold any special talents. He was slower to learn martial arts than the others, who had strong comprehension abilities. However, he managed to surpass the brilliant minds at the peak and brought laurels to his name. It was the fruit of his tough labor. Step by step, his strength had improved steadily. However, he seldom got angry and never belittled anyone. A good head on his shoulders along with the great efforts he put in enabled him to be 100 times stronger than the so-called geniuses. Unbinding the spear on his back, Kim clutched it, saying in a cold voice, start the battle, and you will know if my strength is sufficient to force you to draw your sword. But let me state beforehand, I won't hold myself back even if you don't use your sword. Roche nodded at him. Of course. In the battlefield, you should be in top form. I refuse to use my sword against you, though. I'm about to face many other competitors ahead, disciples much more powerful than you. My sword will be out when I fight them. In truth, Roche didn't want to draw his sword not because he looked down upon his opponents, but because he valued them. The All Peaks competition tested not only the candidates' strength, but also their endurance and strategy. At the consummation of the natural level, Roche possessed comparatively more strength than the others, but there was always a chance of encountering better competitors he had overlooked. Obviously, he wanted to come first in the contest. He wondered what levels his other opponents would be on. Throughout the years, a number of genius disciples had attracted attention at the All Peaks competition. There was Yan Luo in the last round, Hum Shu in the one before that, and Jakob Lu even before. But how many of them could be labeled competent enough to win the championship? Only a few. In addition to the disciples belonging to the 33 peaks, there were personal disciples participating in the competition, who possessed more power and strength. Guided by famous masters, the personal disciples were obviously hard to beat. In the previous competitions, the top 20 spots had often been snatched by them, along with an odd rare genius or two. Kim gave him a curt nod and stepped forward. As his foot hit the ground, an invisible wave rose up to spread around him. He tipped his arm, and the cusp of the spear in his hand flew out like a spirited dragon. His startling, mountain-like momentum rushed out along the cusp. Kim's body, meanwhile, began to expand more and more, until finally it was as tall as Mount Tai. The spear in his hand looked like a spiral dragon. Dragons in the air, come on. As he spoke, beams of life vitality rushed out and swirled around the spear. Seen up close, several vague forms of dragon Sayuro, transformed by the life vitality were discovered gyrating around it. His first move was exceptional. Just as Kim said, he didn't hold back because Roche was at the consummation of the natural level. Instead, he put in his best, just like he always had in life. Dragons in the air was powerful. How will Roche defend this? Honestly, it's impossible for Roche to defend himself without his sword. The dragon spear techniques that Kim just displayed has two subsequent attacks, first to shoot and then to burn the life vitality. Kim has only performed the first so far and it is already bewildering. What if he burned his life vitality too? It would have unimaginable consequences. Roche intends to face all of this barehanded. It would be a disaster. Kim's display of strength brought Roche out of his state of mental repose. He now grew anxious. Moving aside speedily, he tried to dodge the attack. Trying to escape. Do you consider my dragons in the air so easy to run from? Kim held the 10-foot, 100-pound spear in one hand. For a moment, it seemed as if it was a part of Kim's body, unusually flexible. No matter how hard Roche tried to avoid it, its cusp would always be pointed in his direction. The distance between them was decreasing by the second. So far, Roche was unable to avoid it. Suddenly, he performed a set of strange footwork. Body skills and step skills could be of several types. Some were focused on flexibility, like 100 steps in maze. Some were complicated, bewildering and dizzy, such as dainty steps above waves. However, whichever one Roche resorted to among these, he was unable to escape Kim's spear cusp. The spear technique Kim performed was steady, an unbeatable rival for radical and strategic moves. Roche's step skill, however, was special. Whenever he moved, a faint shadow of a sword took shape, pointing in a certain direction. He kept moving accordingly and with perfect speed in order to dodge Kim's spear. A Euro-Osward step. That's the sword step. Rocher has grasped the sword step. A Euro, someone shouted from the sidelines. A Euro, OEME goodness. It's actually the sword step. Rocher is amazing. He hasn't even drawn his sword so far. How strong is he? With his sword step alone, he has proven himself superior to 99% of the disciples at Cloud Sect. A Euro, another exclaimed. The sword step was a unique step skill. A Euro, the length of each step of a performer was exactly equal to that of their sword. Since the step's length was predetermined, the sword step suffered a loss in flexibility. However, one's sword step could especially manifest itself out of one's own sword intent. If someone could grasp their sword intent well enough, their movements would become much faster than those of the average body. Moreover, the step sword was an offensive attack. Every step stifled the airflow and in turn created cyclones containing one's sword intent, and the one performing the skill could volley them straight toward his enemies. Crack, crack, crack. Rocher took soft steps. He had practiced the sword step to small success, and because of his sword intent, the air under his foot was pushed down to create crisp vibrations. With the aid of the sword step, he managed to escape Kim's attacks easily. Zen was moved when he saw Rocher displaying his sword step skill. In the past few days, Zen had practiced at the 7-star sword light platform a number of times to temper his own sword intent, which had contributed to a better understanding of it. He perceived Rocher's comprehension of the sword intent to be impressive, as exemplified by his fluid body movements. Yet, Zen didn't consider his own understanding of the sword intent any worse. Before today, he had not realized that step skills could be influenced by one's sword intent. All the swordsmen in the world held the same dream, to create their own sword step. In itself, it was not difficult to practice. The biggest difficulty lay in blending the sword intent with one's step skill. From a certain point of view, the sword step was the primary form of unity of a swordsman and his sword. The battle between Rocher and Kim continued. As Rocher avoided Kim's spear, the former jumped up toward the sky and somersaulted into a headstand position. He kicked his feet, creating endless cyclones with his sword intent, directly aiming at Kim. Not neglecting Rocher's counterattacks, Kim rotated his spear rapidly. Rocher's cyclones of sword intent collided into the spinning spear, making a shrill noise. Clang, clang, clang. Rocher's sword intent was particularly powerful. Though Kim was as tall as a mountain and had managed to resist the cyclones, still, he was forced to retreat. The battle didn't look like it would come to an end anytime soon. The disciples of Cloud Sect grew alarmed. Everyone's attention was fixed on Rocher and Kim, including that of the personal disciples. As for the other simultaneous battles on the stage, they went unseen, dismissed as impertinent. Rocher's display of power was so astonishing that it had forced the personal disciples to take notice. After all, Rocher had not even drawn his sword till now. Even so, he still had the upper hand in the battle after performing the sword step. It was indication enough of his mighty hidden strength. The personal disciples were not stupid, nor were they born with arrogance. The reason they didn't take their opponents seriously was that most of them didn't deserve it. But now, faced with someone who might potentially be a threat, they would have to be on their best game. Otherwise they'd be the fools. Everyone's eyes were glued to the stage. Zen, however, seemed to be making a series of strategic steps behind the crowd. If somebody saw him, they would be startled to discover that he moved in the exact same manner as Rocher did on the stage. The only difference between the two was that Zen didn't fuse his sword intent into the steps. Lacking of sword intent, the sword step seemed awkward and soulless. A Euro 01 step, 2 steps, 3, a Euro. Technically, Zen should not be able to imitate the skill step by step, watching it as he was for the very first time. Even if he possessed a good memory, the sword skills were far too varied and imbibed complex moves. But the sword step could be guided by one's sword intent. Zen was able to commit the steps to memory because of his understanding of the sword intent. Initially, he had to pause for breaks as he deduced the next steps while practicing. But once he had figured them out and taken note of the relevant tricks, his speed increased a Euro, from 1 step in a breath, to 2. As his understanding of the sword intent grew deeper, as he grew more familiar with the sword step, he could perform more steps in a single breath. All too soon, he had mastered the sword step, fast as a cheetah. I'm now familiar with the sword step, but I'm still not skilled enough to fight against an opponent. I'll have to tailor my steps according to the attacks I'll face. It seems I can only improve in actual combats, Zen thought, shaking his head. One couldn't improve innate powers by practicing behind closed doors. All forms of the martial arts needed actual combats to test themselves, otherwise, they would be relegated to mere untried theories. The disciples still watched the battle between Roche and Kim as it unfolded on the stage. Yehudi was the sole exception, concentrated as he was on his recovery. The effect of the red cloud pill involved 4 phases, and each phase took about an hour to complete itself. During this period of time, he concentrated on absorbing the pill's efficacy through his life vitality. He was now more stabilized in his injury, and as long as he didn't fight any others, nobody could tell that he had been injured. He opened his eyes, only to find Roche displaying the special sword step. That surprised him. He and Roche were both at the consummation of the nature level, but Roche's strength exceeded his. Roche could subdue Kim, who was of the illuminating soul realm, with the sword step alone. The difference in talent between them was huge. Abruptly, he noticed that Zen had disappeared from his side. Turning around his head, he saw Zen stepping back and forth behind the crowd. Oh, what's he doing? Why is he pacing like that? Confusion clouded Yehudi's face. The very next second, however, the expression on his face changed. His footwork looks familiar. Well, it's the sword step. How was it possible? How did Zen know the sword step? Astonishment consumed Yehudi. What surprised him the most was that Zen seemed to have only just begun to learn the steps. Chapter 236, The Crude Imitation. Because of the multiple complex moves, it was nearly impossible to master the sword step in such a short time. It didn't matter how many times Roche demonstrated before him, Yehudi would probably not be able to remember how to do it. So, it was surprising how rapid Zen became proficient by mimicking Roche's sword steps, and as if he were born with the sword step skills, Zen moved faster and faster. Looking at the battle ring, Yehudi saw that Zen's steps were almost identical to Roche's sword steps. Is this guy even human? Wondered Yehudi silently. Zen's abilities stunned Yehudi. It wasn't surprising that Zen was able to beat the other opponents. After all, Zen earned over 50,000 points during his assessment, so, Yehudi was aware that Zen was more adept than he was in combat. However, as he witnessed Zen learn a skill that Roche was most proud to have mastered, the sword step, that quickly, Yehudi was surprised. Zen had an unusual talent to be able to grasp the technique off the cuff as he did. Just then, hearing a loud roar from the battle ring, Yehudi turned his head. By now the battle between Roche and Kim was in full swing. Roche had Kim pinned down using only his sword step. Kim had been repressing his temper, and he was usually as sedate as a mountain when he didn't quickly erupt, but once he did, it was as volatile as a volcano, leaving his opponent to face the fire of his volcanic eruption. Dragon Shadow Kill. Auror. Along with the loud noise, several faint dragon images on Kim's spear came to life at the same time. They encircled the spear and penetrated the tip. All of Kim's life vitality was, in fact, compressed into about a foot-long area of the spear point, which altered its glow from the silver it shimmered to glinting in the sunlight. Kim lunged, thrusting the life vitality-imbued spear at Roche. Roche was racing, and dodging, at an incredible speed around the ring, as he pushed the moves of his sword step method to its maximum. The shadows cast by Roche's rapid speed might make disciples who were at lower levels believe over a dozen rockers were in the ring now. Additionally, because his legs were moving so fast, it gave the illusion that Roche was gliding across the field as though he were ice skating. With his rival racing at such an impossible velocity around him, Kim was feeling dizzy and groaned inwardly. He couldn't even see Roche now. While the Dragon Shadow Kill move was formidable, it would be useless if he couldn't impale his adversary. Kim thrust, but his spear missed the target. It was as though Roche was a ghost, and as Kim's spear impaled the air where Roche had been seconds before, Roche darted behind Kim and touched Kim's back with 2 fingers. When a swordsman understood sword intent fully, he could manipulate even flowers or trees as though they were swords. So, the fingers Roche rested against Kim's back were just like a sword, which left Kim with the choice to either struggle hopelessly or admit defeat. However, the All Peaks competition wasn't a duel to the death. And although it was a difficult blow to lose, where there was life, there was hope. Kim knew Roche was quite talented and that it wasn't possible to win against him. Therefore, on weighing his options, Kim reluctantly admitted defeat. After the match ended, Zen stopped practicing the sword step. He had a rudimentary grasp of it now, and was ready to incorporate it in real combat. The bouts in the ring continued, with a winner and loser for each round, until it was Zen's turn. Next up will be Zen Luo of Drizzle Peak against Cecil Zug of Skywrath Peak. Cecil Zug of Skywrath Peak, speculated Zen. Could he be a member of the noble Zug clan? A look of confusion flashed across Zen's face, and just as quick, it was once more an unreadable expression. He had feuded members of the Zug clan for a long time, but it hadn't crossed his mind that Cecil Zug would be his foe in today's competition. Oh what? Cecil Zug of the Illuminating Soul Realm. What rotten luck for you, Zen. If you can't win, it'd be okay to yield now because one loss isn't important to group competitions anyway. It wasn't the first time Zen heard these words from Master Wen, and although Master Wen didn't want to heap praise on their enemy or make light of his talents, it was still lousy luck that Zen was matched against a practitioner in the Illuminating Soul Realm. Almost every disciple of the Illuminating Soul Realm was among the top 100 disciples, including Cecil Zug, who was ranked somewhere near number 83. Between the start of the competition and that moment, there hadn't been many surprises where members of the Illuminating Soul Realm were concerned. After all, the disciples from the Illuminating Soul Realm refined at a level far superior to any of the Cloud Sect's disciples who were in the nature level. With the exception of Rocher's victory, so far, such mismatched battles led to disciples of the Illuminating Soul Realm winning. But, Rocher's talent was well known, so his performance wasn't really surprising. Master Yu gloated when he heard the announcement that Zen's opponent would be Cecil Zug of the Illuminating Soul Realm because he despised Zen for nearly killing a Blackrock Peak disciple, Mac. Humph. Well, now we'll just see how the little rat refiner practicing at the second grade of nature level holds up against a disciple of the Illuminating Soul Realm. A little rat refiner at the second grade of nature level. So far, during today's All Peaks competition, Zen was the winner in all the matches he was in, and the general opinion was that it was due, in part, to his good fortune. Essentially, since Zen was only at the second grade of nature level, it seemed obvious to most people that he was an opportunistic rat, who would come up against a mighty master, like a disciple of the Illuminating Soul Realm, and then he would be at a loss and end up pulverized. So, Cecil Zug is a member of the Illuminating Soul Realm. Maybe I will try out the sword step, mused Zen instead of worrying like Master Wen did. When he was at a half step into the nature level, he managed to get the upper hand during a fight against a master of the Illuminating Soul Realm. Now, having broken through the confines that had held him back, Zen was at the second grade of nature level, so, it shouldn't be as challenging to win against a disciple of the Illuminating Soul Realm. Zen had completely mastered the extraordinary, quirky and ever-fluctuating sword step, but, he wanted to test it in a real fray. The tall, handsome man with an effeminate air who stood arrogantly straight in the ring was Cecil Zug. In his hand was a fan bearing 8 diagrams. It became apparent that the 8 diagrams weren't patterns inscribed on it though, instead, they were slowly revolving against the fan, like they were alive. Ozen Luo, this isn't the first time I've heard your name, said Cecil Zug as he shook his head disdainfully and continued, there are quite a few members in my family who hate your guts, it seems. If you weren't a disciple here at the Cloud Sect, you wouldn't be safe, and you would have died 100 times over by now. It seems your luck has run out. You're my opponent, and I'm going to destroy you. Now, listen, Interrupting the monologue, Zen impatiently said, I've got to hand it to the Zug family. Each of you, first Fren, then Yale, Joseph, and now you, with such an ego. Each of you has piled the garbage higher than the last. Let's get on with this brawl. Unless, you want to save yourself the hassle and forfeit now. It shocked the disciples who were present when they heard Zen. Earlier, it was Rocher arrogant and boasting he'd fight Kim from the Illuminating Soul Realm without a sword, but, in light of how Zen was behaving, Rocher's attitude was nothing. Rocher could back up his words with his skills. Without drawing his sword, he took on a master of the Illuminating Soul Realm. But, what could Zen do? True, it was a remarkable feat that someone at the second grade of nature level had a winning streak, like Zen, relying purely on his agility and clout. Nevertheless, most people thought it had been lucky that Zen hadn't encountered a very strong opponent, up until now. In contrast to his previous opponents, Cecil Zug was one of the top 100 ranked inner disciples and a true master of the Illuminating Soul Realm. The spectators couldn't help but think Zen had a mental issue. Taunting his rival the way Zen was doing only added fuel to the fire, and brought him closer to death. A Euro OA won't talk nonsense with you, since you'll just argue, unconvinced until you come face to face with the grim reality yourself. Instead, I'll show you the difference between masters of illuminating soul realm and nature creatures. A Euro, said Cecil Zug, seething. He'd been tipped off by his family to do his utmost to kill Zen if he ran into him at the All Peaks competition, and if he succeeded, his family would take responsibility. In fact, it wasn't just the Zug clan who wanted Zen's life ended during the competition. There was a disciple who Saint Vianna arranged to kill Zen. Because of aura, Saint Vianna was uneasy about murdering Zen, and probably told the disciple to make it look like an accident. Still, the ongoing conflict between Zen and the Zug clan was publicly known, so Cecil Zug had none of the apprehension of ending Zen's life. Accordingly, Cecil Zug was blatantly ruthless right from the start. He waved his fan, bringing an evil wind of life vitality rolling at Zen. Adding to the intensity, rolling thunder heralded lightning that was building within the amazing force of evil wind closing in on Zen. As the violent onslaught barreled down on Zen, he made use of Rocher's sword step, and took a slow, calculated step. After he'd won against Kim, Rocher had gone back to join the other Skytop Peak disciples. He wasn't interested in watching the other battles, so, instead, he was lying down, and resting with his eyes closed. When he heard Zen's outrageous remarks, his eyes shot open in surprise. A knowing grin spread as he slowly shook his head before once more closing his eyes. Boasts were countless in such a vast, strange world. Anyone could talk big and gloat, but it was a rarity to find someone able to back up the outlandish declarations. Just as his eyes closed again, Rocher heard someone exclaim loudly, "A Euro, oh, what's going on? He knows the sword step method too. A Euro. A Euro, oh, eyes, that's definitely the sword step. Zen mastered the method as well. A Euro." As the audience watched, Zen slowly made his way around the ring, performing the same maneuvers to the sword step method as Rocher did earlier, and dodged Cecil Zug's evil wind. At first glimpse, some eagle-eyed disciples recognized the method and commented on Zen's performance. "A Euro, oh, that's the sword step. He's performing the technique exactly how Rocher did, but Zen's sword step only appears identical. It doesn't contain the sword intent that Rocher used. How ridiculous, it's merely a crude imitation. A Euro. A Euro, oh, aha, Rocher used sword step, whereas this guy copied the motions and how they appeared, and hasn't learned about the sword intent within it. What's the use of that? A Euro." The endless debating between disciples bombarded Rocher's ears. Intrigued along with being annoyed, he studied Zen as he moved around the ring swiftly. Suddenly, one of Rocher's eyebrows arched strikingly, and what he beheld left him pretty shaken up. "A Euro, oh, that isn't true. Zen isn't taking simple steps. A Euro." Chapter 237, Twins Fan. Sword intent was something that could not be expressed by words, only felt through other sensations, akin to some kind of ethereal power. If one wanted to comprehend sword intent, one did not only have to spend decades practicing the sword, but more importantly, one needed to have outstanding talents and remarkable opportunities. That was why while there were many people who used swords, only a few of them had a deep understanding of sword intent. Those who could gain a good sense of its essence were in the good graces of the gods. As he watched the battle, Rocher could see that there was no sword intent in Zen's sword step. Strangely, though, Zen's sword step looked very childish, as if he was not skilled in the technique and only just began trying it out. Rocher knew that the thought of Zen crudely imitating his sword step was untenable. It was undeniable that the technique could only be performed under the premise that one had a true understanding of it. If the person did not fully understand it, imitating the movements would be fruitless, as he would be unable to adapt to the trails and find the direction of the sword intent. Merely copying a stance should have meant nothing. However, although Zen was unskilled in the area, his every step was not only close to that of Rocher's but exactly like it. How was it possible? It left Rocher deeply puzzled. Unless a Euro, Zen had already understood the sword intent and was only hiding his capabilities. Still, how could a disciple at the second grade of nature level understand sword intent? Reluctant to accept such an assumption, Rocher shook his head. There was no doubt that Rocher was a talent. Although he might not be the strongest in Skytop Peak, he was the one who was the most favored. All talents were very arrogant, and Rocher was no exception. For Rocher, though, being arrogant was not a bad thing. With such an attitude, he could be driven to reach the top of the field of martial arts. But if Zen really understood the sword intent and had a knack for the sword step as well, a Euro. It was a shocking idea. Looking at Zen's unmatured, rather awkward steps, Rocher sighed. This Guya has he only just learned the sword step? I haven't seen him employ this skill before. Did he get it after seeing my own sword step? As his thoughts stirred, Rocher didn't dare continue guessing. If his assumptions were right, it would mean a great blow to him. Among everyone present, Rocher was not the only one to notice this. Kenneth was also shooting strange looks at Zen. Someone like Kenneth who had already reached a high level had the knowledge about the levels of the martial arts that the saints and elders of the Cloud sect couldn't claim to have. Although he was a swordsman and didn't have an understanding of the sword intent, he also noticed a strangeness about Zen. The disciple seemed to be demonstrating the sword step he just learned. The more steps he advanced, the more skilled he became. But did such talent who could pick things up so quickly even exist? The competition became more interesting with this second-grade nature level guy. As Kenneth pondered over it, he saw the respectable elder named Shu, who was standing beside him, stroke his beard and smile knowingly. Xu, are you noticing anything odd? Euro. With a little chuckle, Shu said, Euro, are you asking if Zen learned the sword step just now? Euro. Kenneth nodded. Euro, I'm not very sure. Zen is a green hand in sword step. He's improving rapidly but under close examination Euro, there's something you missed. I did catch it, though, while Rocher battled Kim, Zen imitated Rocher's sword step outside the arena. It's surprising, really, how Zen was so quick to learn things. He copied Rocher's sword step in such a short time. He is indeed a talent. Hoo-ha when I was watching him, he practiced for a period of only 10 minutes. But he mastered the skills so quickly. As far as I can see, Zen already has an understanding of sword intent and knows it well, Euro. With another smile, Shu spoke slowly. Although his cultivation was far from Kenneth's, Shu was a swordsman and knew about sword intent much better than Kenneth did. With that background, he could immediately recognize Zen's situation and give a valid explanation for it. Euro, guess how long this guy will stay in this competition? Euro. Upon hearing the words, Kenneth suddenly popped the question. Well, Euro. Understanding sword intent would do him a great help, seeing as he's mastering the sword step. This talent is extraordinary. Buddha Euro Shu shook his head. Euro, he's only at second grade of nature level. It's very difficult for him to defeat Cecil, and even harder for him to advance further in the competition. Oh, is that what you think? I was actually thinking he could enter the top 30. The thought brought a smile to Kenneth's face. Shu, on the other hand, was surprised to hear the others comment about Zen. The top 30 of the All Peaks competition was the same as the top 30 of the Cloud sect. The closer the ranks were to the top, the more difficult it would be for them to advance. Entering the top 100 was already a challenge, even more so was entering the top 50. To enter the top 30 was a nearly impossible task, leaps and bounds more difficult than just getting into the top 100. With what Kenneth said, did that mean Zen had the strength to compete with the personal disciples? It was unthinkable. Zen should feel lucky if he could defeat Cecil. But for a second-grade nature-level disciple to defeat someone of the illuminating soul realm. There had been no such thing in the history of Cloud sect. The personal disciples were the best talents. To Elder Shu's knowledge, Kenneth was not a person who would lie through his teeth. In truth, though, there was a great gap between Zen's realm and that of all the other opponents, making Shu doubt himself. Was he wrong in his judgment? Did Kenneth see something he failed to notice? Anyhow, since Kenneth gave his remarks, Elder Shu would not refute him, but instead, he waited and saw how things moved along. Doing his best to hide his sword intent, Zen demonstrated his sword step alone as he circled around Cecil. As Cecil shook the feather fan in his hand, gusts of evil winds whirled towards Zen, brushing past him as Zen narrowly escaped every shot. Seeing his performance, many disciples of the Cloud sect who mocked Zen gradually began to shut up. What was wrong with this copycat? Why should anyone bother if he imitated Rocher's sword step? Going back to the basics, Rocher did not, by any means, create the sword step. Moreover, if Zen mastered the rules of sword step without knowledge on sword intent, the only word that could describe him was genius. Although sword step unaccompanied by sword intent only made one dabbler in the skill, Zen was able to move smoothly among the evil winds Cecil produced. How many disciples of the Cloud sect could achieve such a thing? What else can you do but keep running? You should know that by escaping, you'll end up with a more unsightly loss. The only way to go is by attacking. You're not qualified to be a warrior, Cecil shouted as he waved his fan. The whole arena was filled with powerful whirls of irregular winds, but Zen was able to navigate through them with the sword step, remaining unscathed. Even the evil tornadoes had no effect on him. Faced with Cecil's provocation, Zen felt no anger whatsoever and maintained the usual light smile on his face. Zen was only avoiding him for the time being, because he didn't want to attack Cecil just yet. Although he already mastered the sword step, he had yet to use the technique in a real battle, keeping him at a green level. Since he needed to practice the technique and improve through real combat, he decided that Cecil was a suitable opponent for him to practice his skills on. At the starting level of the Illuminating Soul Realm, Cecil's power was neither very strong nor very weak. It just so happened that he hated Zen to his core, so he was certain he would show no mercy to the man if faced in battle. It would be a fight to the death. There couldn't be a more suitable opponent. Seeing the smile on Zen's face, Cecil's irritation only grew. Although his sword step was awkward, Zen was as agile as a rabbit as he avoided the evil winds from Cecil's feather fan. Oa, do you think I will just sit by and watch you run around? Cecil sneered as he tightened the grip on his fan. All of a sudden, 2 streams of life vitality appeared in his hands. It was bicolored life vitality. Streams of black and white life vitality surged from Cecil's body. There were only a few people in the world's history who had the bicolor life vitality. It was special as it represented 2 different kinds of life vitality which would merge in the belly. Even in Zen's case, as he cultivated a little demonic life energy, he had to quickly consume all the purple life vitality in his belly, as it couldn't hold 2 different kinds of life vitality at the same time. Seeing as Cecil was able to cultivate the black and white life vitality, it was either he had a special body that could accommodate multiple kinds of life vitality, or he had 2 bellies, each able to accommodate a single kind of life vitality. Or perhaps, it could also be that the Zug clan had some kind of secret method that could use an enchanted barrier to partition the belly. As soon as the black and white life vitality came out, it immediately rushed towards Cecil's fan and dove into the 8 diagrams on the fan, making it begin to rapidly spin. Flashing a cunning smile, Cecil lifted the fan and waved it harshly towards Zen. Edwin's Chaos Cyclone. The feather fan Cecil held was a top-grade spiritual weapon called a Edwin's fan. The said fan was a replica of an ancient fairy weapon called the Life Vitality 8 diagram fan. A gentle wave of the fan could create terrifying and immense cyclones, capable of shaking the heavens and earth, turning everything to dust. As a replica, the twins' fan was far from the capabilities of the Life Vitality 8 diagram fan, but it did inherit 1/10 of the power from the authentic piece. With the bicolor vitality Cecil emitted, gales were blowing within the whole arena. A tremendous cyclone formed, covering almost the entire area. The wind blade around the cyclone cut through the light curtain of enchanted barrier, crackling it with crisp noises. Oath Twins Chaos Cyclone can attack you from every angle. As long as you are within it, you will constantly suffer damage. I'll see how you can escape this time. As Cecil continued waving his twin's fan, his movements turned harsher and the tremendous cyclone became more rapid in its speed. It seemed that Zen had no way to escape as the cyclone engulfed the entire arena. If he truly wanted to escape, he would have to find a way to leave the whole area. Swoosh. Because of carelessness, several wind's blades grazed Zen's back. The sharp forces began scratching against his robe. Keep running. I want to see where you end up. As Cecil quickened the waving of his fan, the cyclone became more and more powerful. Narrowing his eyes, Zen felt the wind blowing around him. Suddenly, he smiled terribly mischievously. Or running. Why should I run? Chapter 238, Flying. The phoenix crystal in Zen's right arm was a special kind of crystal. The phoenix crystal was said to be a feather that a phoenix once dropped as it streaked across the sky in ancient times. When the feather fell to the earth, it was enveloped by the resin of a pine tree. After thousands of years of evolvement, the tiny piece of essence that had been concealed in the feather spread through the resin and eventually formed the crystal. That was the legend. No one knew exactly how the phoenix crystal came into being. But a weapon refiner from the eastern region discovered the unique features of the phoenix crystal. He then inlaid the phoenix crystal into a weapon and found that it could reduce the weight of the weapon. For instance, when the phoenix crystal was embedded into a ghostly machete that weighed 1,000 pounds, its weight reduced to less than 200 pounds. Although the phoenix crystal was pretty rare, there were still quite a number of weapons equipped with one. However, no one had ever tried to inset a phoenix crystal into a man's flesh. After all, a human body was very different from a weapon. But due to the peculiar weapon refining method Zen had been practicing, he had managed to convert his body into a weapon. This was why he was able to embed the phoenix crystal into his arm. When faced with Cecil's twin's chaos cyclone, Zen activated the phoenix crystal in his right arm. A smile appeared on Zen's face when he felt the energy from the phoenix crystal spread through his body. As the energy of the phoenix crystal poured into his body, Zen felt his weight decrease sharply. A euro. With a whirl of wild wind, Zen began to move. Zen was surprised that he didn't need to use any strength. Since he was as light as a feather, the wind simply picked him up. Now, he was flying over the arena in the wind, following the route of the wind and spiraling up. A-euro-ogi, Zen is flying. A-euro. Only practitioners at the illuminating soul realm can fly. But can he do it? A-euro. Something is not right. It looks like the wind has caught him. He is merely at the second grade of the nature level. It's impossible for him to fly. A-euro. Oh nonsense. Caught by the wind, how can that be? Does he look like a kite to you? Even if the cyclone summoned by Cecil can carry people, it can't lift them like that. A-euro. Disciples of Drizzle Peak burst into excited whispers. They were clueless about how Zen was able to fly. Right now, Zen was circling over the arena along with the wind. Since he kept flying downwind, he was soaring in the same direction and at the same speed as the wind blades generated by the whirlwind. This direction kept him safe from those sharp wind blades. Cecil, who was standing in the middle of the arena, was shocked. His mouth fell open in disbelief. For a combatant like him who had entered the illuminating soul realm, flying was not a difficult task. More specifically, since Cecil had been practicing using his life vitality like the wind, he was knowledgeable about airflows and wind momentum. He never thought that Zen would fly. After hearing the discussions of the other disciples, Cecil was at a loss as well. Can this guy fly with the wind like a kite? If Zen keeps heading in the direction of the whirlwind that I summoned, then there is no way for me to hurt him. He is flying downwind, right? Cecil's brows furrowed. Once more, he held up the feather fan. But this time, he fanned frantically in the opposite direction. The twins' chaos cyclone was devised to cause a colossal whirlwind by letting the life vitality released from the twins' fan in his hand disrupt the direction of airflow. Cecil could also control the wind blades inside the tornado. It could be said that he was able to cut everything within the scope of the whirlwind into pieces with the wind blades. However, since Zen was heading along the direction of the wind, he was able to dodge the numerous wind blades. Having noticed that the twins' chaos cyclone had failed to harm Zen, Cecil began fanning in the opposite direction. His actions generated a second twins' chaos cyclones. Never had Cecil done such a thing before, and so he had no idea what would happen. A-euro. The two powerful but opposite direction cyclones crashed into each other. The clashing of the wind blades produced an ear-piercing noise. After that, the bigger turbulences that were caused by the collision hammered into one another at varied angles. The whole arena was in chaos and looked quite appalling. Many disciples seemed horror-stricken. They all gasped. In previous battles, practitioners at the illuminating soul realm fighting against cultivators at the peak of the nature level did not go all out. Even during the battle between Roche and Kim, they stopped attacking at an appropriate time. Although it was quite an excellent battle, it was less fierce than this one. Now, as Cecil had demonstrated such intimidating power in an instant, several disciples imagined what they would do if they were sucked into the Cyclonia Euro. I'm afraid I'll be sliced within a second. Even Cecil himself looked rather tense. He was rooted to the center of the arena. Since Cecil did not have complete control of the cyclone after he summoned it, the word A-euro had been used in the title of his attack method. In fact, the power of the twins' chaos cyclone was so horrid that everything within a 100-foot radius would be torn apart by the wind blades. However, at the eye of the cyclone, the power of the wind was not as destructive. This, however, changed since the two cyclones had collided with each other. When the two cyclones, which were equally powerful but headed in opposite directions, smashed together, they disturbed the airflow in the arena. Even being near the eye of cyclone was not as safe as before. Cecil, who could sense the change of airflow as it occurred, understood that he would need to move along with the eye of the cyclone to assure his safety. If not, he would be hurt by the wind blades as well. As light as a swallow, Zen had been brought to the sky by the cyclone. He let the turbulent airflow propel him, and drifted with the wind. Although Cecil's wind blades were quite sharp, they were inferior to James's sword energy. James had condensed a ton of dreadful sword intent into his sword energy. If Zen were struck by his sword energy, it was no doubt that he would be cut in half. Zen had no hope to fight against James's sword energy unless he upgraded his body to the level of a fairy weapon. What was more, Cecil's cultivation method was not quite suitable for a one-on-one challenge. Instead, if he were fighting on a battlefield, his twin's Chaos Cyclone might have played a significant role, because the range of the twin's Chaos Cyclone was large and it would destroy all combatants sucked into it. To be frank, none of the members of the Zug clan were good at fighting alone. Among the many cultivation methods passed from one generation to another within the Zug clan, loads of them were on military strategy and tactics, as well as famous military formations. That was why the Zug clan often dispatched their members to the Imperial Army as counselors. They were born to lead troops. Thus, even if the wind blades cut Zen's robe, they did not have the power to penetrate his spiritual weapon-like body. Gusts of violent wind carried Zen in the air. He was like a butterfly fluttering along with the wind and rain. Some thought he looked like a small boat rocked by a storm and frequently got swept away by huge tides but instantly steadied itself. Quite a few people were anxious as they watched Zen. Sweat beaded their foreheads as they worried about his safety. The All Peaks competition, after all, was a contest designed to test the strength of disciples. Very few would put up a desperate fight when they were still in the group stage unless they were contending for the top 50. It would not matter if one lost 1 or 2 matches during the group stage. As long as they did not get eliminated, their goal was fulfilled. Some disciples would even go so far as to hide their real strength. Even if they went head-on with a much stronger opponent, to conceal their real power, they would often admit defeat on purpose to avoid exposing their ace cards too soon. Accordingly, it was not wise to doggedly pursue a win during the group stage. Zen, however, was an outlier. He would never admit defeat. Over time, Zen had gained a better understanding of his martial arts capability. To reach the top rank in martial arts, I cannot use tricks. Even when I know that there are thistles and thorns ahead, I should grit my teeth and power through instead of sidestepping them. Though it's fine to sidestep a difficulty, my aspiration will fade if I continue to do that. What's worse is that I won't advance on the road of practicing martial arts. Since I am determined to head far down this road, I must not cheat. No matter what my challenge, I will march forward with gritted teeth. While Zen wanted to test his limits and push himself for the sake of his growth, what forced Cecil to the extreme was the enmity between Zen and his family. Killing Zen during this match would be perfect. Spurred by their motives, the moment Cecil and Zen faced each other, they began a life-and-death combat. As the cyclone in the arena grew stronger and stronger, the airflow also grew intensive. All kinds of odd-shaped blades clashed with each other, before ricocheting in all directions. A thump, a. A wind blade flew right toward Zen. It cut through his robe and sank into his flesh. Zen let out a muffled snort, but his heart leapt with Hoya. The wind blade could not harm him. It left a shallow scratch on his body, but it did not harm him severely. The impact of the wind blade, however, stimulated the warm currents, which in turn, started to cleanse his corporeal body. Now that these wind blades can't hurt me, I don't need to avoid them. Instead, I can let them strike me. Before, Zen had tried to curl as much as possible to avoid the blades. But now, he stretched out his arms and legs in the air. Zen is in luck. He has managed to not be hit by a wind blade until now. But, I'm afraid injury from this one collision will not be easy to bear. The blade probably severed his bowels. Given the immense power of the twins' Chaos Cyclone, he is really lucky for not being minced yet. But this blow is the first of many. With a few more accidental hits like this, he will be mangled. He surrendered. If I were him, I would have given up a long time ago. While there is life, there is hope. Even if I lose this year's All Peaks competition, I can try again in 3 years. Regardless of this guy's strength, he is definitely a lunatic. As the disciples murmured between themselves, a huge wind blade suddenly flew in Zen's direction. Imagining the damage the massive wind blade would do to Zen, many female disciples began shrieking. The battle referee looked grave, and his complexion paled. According to the rules of the arena, only when Zen admitted defeat would the referee be able to rescue Zen. Now, with the wind blade about to hit Zen, he anxiously waited for Zen to shout give up. However, to the referee's surprise, Zen would rather collide with the wind blade than surrender. Chapter 239, The Indestructible Physical Body. Zen, just throw in the towel. Master Wen and the other disciples were silently praying for Zen to cave in. At that very moment, they didn't care about winning in the competition, but Zen's life. However, Zen didn't listen and kept on rushing towards the wind blades. The irregular-shaped thick blades attacked Zen from all directions. Coop coop a. Then the blades finally hit and stabbed Zen's body, creating sickening sounds. The robe that Zen was wearing was still new, but it was instantly cut into pieces when the blades fell on it. He looked like a firecracker from an angle, bursting in an instant as the tiny pieces of his clothes scattered in all directions. It's too late. I'm afraid that he's been cut into pieces, A disciple murmured as he watched the pieces of Zen's clothes fly around. But to his surprise, when the view started to be clear, he saw a naked body in the air. It was a nearly perfect body, smooth skin with a healthy metallic shine, physically attractive, well-proportioned, and full of power. The body didn't have any visible physical damage. But as they looked closely, they saw some tiny marks on his body left by the blades that hit him. I can't believe it. How can he survive the attack from the blades without any damage? A disciple said with disbelief in his eyes. He wasn't the only one who couldn't believe what he was seeing. All the other disciples were also shocked. Even Kenneth, who showed no care for anything, suddenly stood up and stared at Zen's body. The disciples from Lady Peak, who were silently staring at the naked Zen, suddenly moved their eyes to Zen's lower torso. Their faces suddenly turned red and they let out a scream. They had to turn their faces away to hide their blushing cheeks and covered their eyes with their hands, even though they still couldn't help peeping at him. But there was one female disciple who just kept staring at the naked Zen. She pursed her lips into a smile and her eyes were filled with excitement. She said, Epitric, it seems that you have boasted. I am afraid that even your King Kong cover cannot match with his flesh skin, Patrick Pei cultivated himself according to Buddhist doctrine, and the nature of his mind was his vital asset. His creed in life was not to be pleased by external gains, and not saddened by personal loss as In the past, he could always maintain his inner peace and let his mind be calm and stable no matter what the circumstances. However, at this moment, the surprise in his eyes was hard to conceal. Hearing the words from Tracy Mo's mouth, he replied with self-mockery, you're right. I guess I have underestimated him. This guy's body is far stronger than I have imagined, and I wonder how he did it. The martial artists in Eastern region commonly practiced their life vitality after they stepped into the level of nature creatures, suspending the practice of the flesh body. And people seldom practiced both life vitality and flesh body. Therefore, both the illuminating soul realm masters and marrow refining level practitioners were equal in terms of their body strength. The only essential difference between the two realms was their life vitality. So it was uncommon to see Zen's strong body. Things are really getting exciting. I really want to make a hole in his body and hear him beg for his life. Tracy Mo said with her face showing uncontrolled excitement. Patrick Pei smiled faintly and said, his flesh is as hard as diamond and I'm afraid you can't cut it. Tracy quirked her lips contemptuously. I haven't fought with him yet. What makes you think I can't? I'm not a jerk like Cecil, and it's easy to knock down someone like Cecil. Patrick just shook his head and made no further comment. He continued to focus on the competition. All the disciples who participated in the All Peaks competition were extremely surprised with Zen's excellent performance. But the person who was more surprised by the turn of events was Zen's opponent, Cecil. He was certain that Zen would die after he was hit by the cyclone of blades. The Zug clan had promised Cecil that if he could kill Zen, he would be rewarded with the white jade pill. Its value was beyond dispute because of the difficulty in obtaining one. For a person at Illuminating Soul Realm, this pill could greatly enhance his practice. He had witnessed Zen dashed into the cyclone of blades and his clothes shattered into pieces. But he didn't expect to see him survive the attack without any wound or physical damage. Cecil stammered. What else can I do? I can't believe the blades didn't kill him. Am I going to break that taboo? Is that the only way? He thought to himself. Cecil gritted his teeth and hesitated for a moment. He knew very well that he couldn't cut through Zen's body unless he used a forbidden martial art at the expense of his blood essence. The power of the forbidden martial art was overwhelming that even Cecil himself could not fully control. And to use this forbidden martial art, he had to use his own blood essence. He was in the lower hand right now. When he was lost in his own thoughts, several blades of wind suddenly surrounded him. Othis is no good. The two cyclones are intertwining with each other. Cecil was not in a safe place right now, and all he could do was try to avoid the blades in the field. The twins' chaos cyclone was so powerful that even Cecil himself was unable to control it. As a result, the match turned out to be surviving the wind of blades, and whoever survived it would be the winner. Zen could easily dodge the blades with his strong body. But Cecil could not, and he could instantly die with just one hit from a blade. These blades were everywhere except in the eye of the cyclone. Although Cecil was at Illuminating Soul Realm and could fly, he just continuously jumped to avoid the blades, appearing to be slightly embarrassed. It wasn't only the blades that Cecil needed to dodge but also Zen's attacks. Zen let himself be absorbed by the cyclone of blades but didn't pass a chance to attack Cecil. When the gust of blades wrapped Zen and pushed him towards Cecil, he took the opportunity to attack. Though he had many ways to beat Cecil, he still chose the simplest and most straightforward way, the fist. He knew that he would face more powerful disciples than Cecil in the following competitions, so he had to play all his cards well until he reached the final match. In fact, he didn't want anyone to find out about this physical body because this was one of his most powerful weapons. However, at that moment, he couldn't control himself and just dashed into the blades of wind, shattering his robe into pieces. Zen felt uncomfortable fighting naked and wanted to end their match sooner. Watching Zen head straight for him, Cecil tried to avoid him. He assumed that Zen's strength must be the same with his body, so if Zen hit him with that fist, he would certainly be defeated. His judgment was right, but his fortune was running out. Just as he was about to step back, a blade of wind suddenly appeared behind him. Should he dodge it? But then he would be hit by Zen's fist. Dodge Zen's fist, but then the blade of wind would finish him off. After a moment, he chose to face Zen's fist. He quickly moved and successfully dodged the blade of wind behind him, and then Zen hit him head-on with his fist. After being punched by Zen, he instantly regretted his decision. If he could turn back time, he would choose to be cut by the blade of wind rather than be punched by Zen. Bang. Zen concentrated all his strength to his fist and slammed it onto Cecil's body. It was such a heavy blow that Cecil's body spun as he was catapulted like a sandbag. Finally, his body hit on the light curtain of enchanted barrier and slowly slid down. Then he lost consciousness. The referees saw what happened and hurriedly ran to the field. The chaos cyclone on the arena was soon suppressed down with just a wave of the referee's hand. Then he announced, the winner of this match is Zen from Drizzle Peak. After he was announced as the winner, Zen stepped out of the field. When Master Wen saw Zen exit the field, he ran to him and handed him a robe. Zen quickly put it on. Zen, you are a marvel. You defeated Cecil. Good job. Said Master Wen. He could no longer contain his excitement. Although Zen had also beaten some strong opponents previously, Cecil was different. Unlike Cecil, his previous opponents were not on the high ranks in the Cloud Sect list. Cecil was at the level of Illuminating Soul Realm, and he ranked 83rd on the Cloud Sect chart. And now that Zen had defeated Cecil, his rank on the top 100 disciples was set in stone. Just as Yehudi prophesied, Zen might make a remarkable difference for Drizzle Peak. What made it more amazing was that Zen was only 17 years old and at grade 2 nature level. It was indeed a miracle that a person at grade 2 nature level would be in the top 100 of the Cloud Sect chart. If Zen could break through nature level and reached Illuminating Soul Realm in the future, he could be in the top rank of the Cloud Sect list and might be the first place in the future All Peaks competitions. Master Wen thought it would not be a long way off. He believed that Zen could do it in the next All Peaks competition. But little did Master Wen know that Zen didn't want to wait for the next All Peaks competition. He was aiming to take the first place in this year's competition with his current grade 2 nature level. Chapter 240, Unrestrained Gambling. Ever since seeing Zen on the field, the disciples at the Cloud Sect had paid close attention to him. However, at first they were interested in Zen because his refinement level was extremely low. Jacques was in grade 2 at the nature level when he participated in the competition last time, but what made him stand out? As a personal disciple, Jacques was hand-picked, implying there was something extraordinary about him. On the other hand, Zen was from the least powerful peak, Drizzle Peak. No one thought there was anything special about Zen, instead they felt pity that there weren't stronger disciples at Drizzle Peak to join the All Peaks competition. A lot of disciples from other peaks felt defeated because many of the more powerful members who were in the consummation level in their peaks weren't permitted to compete in the All Peaks competition, but a little guy in grade 2 at the nature level from Drizzle Peak was eligible to join. This peak was unreal. As the matches continued, the innate superhuman strength Zen possessed attracted attention from some members, while others thought Zen wouldn't go much farther. What use did his innate superhuman strength have? Warriors didn't rely on physical strength so much as the life vitality housed within a warrior's core being. Zen might have defeated all the opponents in his battles so far, but most of the disciples were either perplexed, not knowing how Zen was winning, or thought it was luck. Very few accepted that Zen had a true power, except the disciples from Drizzle Peak. Still, Zen had taken down Cecil during this match. Zen seemed to be like Rocher, with the ability to defeat someone of the illuminating soul realm even though they only possessed the strength of a nature creature. Most of the onlookers were unwilling to believe Zen was on the same level as Rocher though. It was bad enough having one disciple at the Cloud sect, whose performance bedeviled them, and destroyed their confidence, like Rocher did. Why'd Zen have to be like him? After mulling it all over, the thought dawned on them that by defeating Cecil, Zen's achievement was far more terrifying than what Rocher accomplished. Considering that Rocher was in the consummation level, his strength was closer to Kim's who was in the illuminating soul realm. It left them wondering just what Zen's strength was. He was merely at grade 2 in the nature level. A disciple's strength at grade 2 in the nature level was so far below that of a disciple in the illuminating soul realm. 3 years ago, Jacques, a personal disciple, hadn't performed so well, but Zen did, and even beat Cecil, who was ranked 83rd of the top 100 disciples. None of that mattered. Regardless of how well Zen fought against Cecil, most people still thought Zen was inferior to Rocher. Because Rocher had made a name for himself at the Cloud sect, able to defeat a warrior of the illuminating soul realm prior to the All Peaks competition. Most people recognized that Rocher was a virtuoso and naturally, someone as gifted as that would be more powerful. That was part of human nature. Two people at the same level would try to outperform each other, but when one was more powerful than the other, giving credit where due was honorable. Not so long ago, everybody thought so low of Zen that it was believed he would do so poorly that he'd look like a buffoon during the All Peaks competition. During the competitions, people were surprised to discover Zen was not a buffoon, and everyone who had underestimated him was. The strength Zen had displayed was like a slap in the face to those who considered Zen inept. They needed to find someone more capable than Zen, so they'd chosen Rocher. It wasn't long before many of the disciples who doubted Zen's prowess were comparing Zen's expertise and skills to Rocher's, with most of them preferring the latter. So, what if Zen has defeated Cecil? Cecil's fighting style isn't as strong in a one-on-one battle, and his refining methods are more suitable for team attacks. If Zen goes up against Rocher, he will lose, hands down, and end up knocked on his rear. True enough. Zen relied on innate strength and his abnormally strong physical form. He must have eaten something special, or maybe a treasure, which empowered him. It's a fluke, and not related to talent at all. He's in grade 2 of the nature level and 17 years old. Therefore, his talent is ordinary, but Rocher, now he's unique. He's followed the rules, worked hard and hasn't gotten where he is through trickery. What's more, Rocher didn't show his strength off. Why, he didn't even draw a sword. While Zen relies only on his corporeal body. No matter how strong the body is, sooner or later he will meet someone truly powerful. What then? It'll consume all his strength. Chatter between the disciples from almost every peak was like this, except the disciples of Drizzle Peak. When the disciples of Drizzle Peak heard the gossip, it upset them, but, since there weren't very many members from Drizzle Peak at the competitions, they couldn't influence popular opinion. Beyond the All Peaks competition field, Zen was the subject of choice as well. Each of the 33 peaks at the Cloud sect had a picture slab to watch the All Peaks competition matches. The hottest topic in every peak, whether among inner or outer disciples, was Zen. Over at 90-foot peak there was a group of inner disciples crowded around the picture slab in a heated debate. Most of them agreed with the spectators at the competitions, that Rocher was more powerful. Only a handful of disciples thought Zen was the more formidable adversary because he defeated a member of the illuminating soul realm even though he only possessed the strength of a grade 2 refiner in the nature level. Hence, it was only logical to see that his expertise would be far superior to Rocher's when he ascended to the consummation realm. Oh, there's no doubt about it. Zen is more capable, one youth from 90-foot peak announced as he shook his head. Oh, come on, Zachary. You're blind and brainless if you think that. Are you aware that to some extent, Rocher has mastered the sword intent? And Rocher wasn't giving the match his full effort. If he drew a sword, Rocher would shred Zen's body into ribbons, easily, using the sword intent. Retorted another disciple quickly. Oh yeah, so. Rocher has been holding back and keeping how strong he is to himself. Isn't that what Zen does too? Countered Zachary as his lips slowly curled into a triumphant smile. Although he was a top disciple at 90-foot peak, he, unfortunately, lost in the battle ring before the All Peaks competition, which meant he didn't get the chance to compete this year. As a matter of fact, amongst the disciples who weren't taking part in the All Peaks competition, Zachary might very well be the strongest. If you really believe that Zen will win, why not place a wager on him? Of course, if you're so sure, then you could bet your entire savings on him. Commented some of the others. Disciples had been placing wagers on the outcome of the competitions from the start of the All Peaks competition. The competitors were assessed on stats, including their strength, and the gambling was open to all the disciples that wanted to participate. Technically it was against the rules, however, the Cloud Sect officials turned a blind eye to the gambling. After all, many of the disciples from the noble clans were placing and taking bets. Rocher's odds were 1.2, while Zen's were 3.5. If the odds were low, it meant that people thought he was strong. Looking at how much lower Rocher's odds were, it could only be surmised that most people thought Rocher was more powerful. Not to be brought down by the mockery his peers were dishing out, Zachary laughed loudly. What makes you think I haven't already placed a bet? Actually, I wagered my entire savings on Zen at the very beginning, and since then I have tripled my capital. Do you want to see my cubic crystals balance? It'd frighten you. And, I'll keep betting on him. I'll add everything in my savings. Are you going to bet everything on Rocher? Asked Zachary, shocking everyone at 90-foot peak. Rocher's strength was incredible, but he wasn't invincible. After all, Rocher was refining at the consummation of nature level. And the personal disciples hadn't started to compete. Additionally, there were some disciples in the 33 peaks that could beat Rocher, such as Wing Xie and Xini Wu from the same peak as Rocher, along with even Bai and Dick Zhou from Black Rock Peak. They were all gifted and masters in the illuminating soul realm, so, it was a great possibility any one of them might defeat Rocher. Certainly there wasn't a madman who would risk betting all the savings on him. It was no big deal to Rocher if he lost in one round, as he could still join in the other group matches. But, if he lost a single time, anyone who was betting the savings on him would be in serious trouble. Still, Zachary was a madman, and risked everything on Zen winning. His plan was so crazy, and it was ingenious. He would bet it all on Zen every round. If he guessed right and Zen won every round, he would double his savings, and bring his total into the thousands. Why was Zachary willing to risk so much? Others said Zachary was crazy, but he was quite clear that he wasn't insane. On the contrary, he trusted his gut and Zen's strength. Since he was the only one who'd felt Zen's abnormal, intense strength and knew how powerful Zen's sword intent was. Zen could manipulate sword intent when he'd practiced with a sword for the first time and resisted 100 waves of magnetic aurora on the 7-star sword light platform on the difficulty of level 8. A guy such as Zen couldn't be called a genius though, since he fit the description of a monster much better. When they looked through the picture slab earlier, they saw Zen had started the sword step. Everyone laughed, mocking Zen because his sword step was a crude imitation, but Zachary didn't care. He watched carefully all the while with shock in his heart. He saw how immature Zen's sword step was and realized that Zen had barely learned the sword step from Rocher, unexpectedly. After watching the sword step performed one time, Zen was able to initiate the steps and from there, practice it too. It was unbelievable, it was absurd, still, Zachary knew Zen could do it. Given how abnormal Zen's talent was, this method was nothing to him. Because Zachary had seen a more abnormal aspect of Zen. The confident Zachary watched the picture slab, a playful smile growing, and making his face light up. Come on, Zen. I'm addicted to gambling, but, these years, I rarely win. Just this once, let me bet, unrestrained, and win big.